One day, the world just fell apart. Monsters started pouring out of random gates without a single second of warning. The only ones who could fight back were the hunters, people who awakened with system-granted powers. Most capped out at 7 stars, but 7 of them reached the legendary 9-star rank and formed the 7 great families. Then there was Ryoga Chinen. He made history by reaching 9 stars without any help from those godlike constellations. To the great families, a guy like him was a glitch in the system that had to be deleted. He was officially judged as a threat to their world order. Cut to the present, and the city is a literal hellscape swallowed by fire. The Romanov family has officially taken over, leaving a mountain of bodies in their wake. Ryoga is cornered and bloody, clutching a cracked pocket watch in his hand. He's gasping for air, his face battered and covered in his own blood. He drops to his knees in the middle of the wreckage, barely hanging on. He glares up at his executioner, cursing the name Dmitri. Standing over him is Dmitri Romanov, a 9-star hunter acting as the vessel for the god Odin. Ryoga asks the one thing he needs to know: why go through all this effort just to kill him? Dmitri just laughs. He says it's because Ryoga refused to submit to the families or accept a god's grace. He explains that the constellations themselves are calling for Ryoga's head. An independent undead king with this much power is just too big of a risk for the balance. Ryoga just scoffs at the whole divine order speech. Dmitri mocks him for choosing a defiled path instead of bowing to the constellations. The old man raises his hand, and divine golden light starts gathering around him. Ryoga forces himself back up, mocking Dmitri for hiding behind a god's power. He's done with the talk and decides to show exactly why they're afraid of him. Skeletons begin clawing their way out of the scorched earth at his command. Dark energy ripples through the air as the spell activates. He unleashes his death field, blanketing the ruins in shadows and bone. A legion of the dead rises behind him, ready for one last stand. Dmitri isn't impressed. He charges up his own strongest magic to end this. A pillar of blinding light descends from the sky right into the old man's palm. Ryoga realizes his skeletons don't stand a chance against what's coming. Dmitri unleashes the Eye of Odin, a massive burst of holy energy. The core of the attack glows with an intense heat. A massive beam of fire and light tears through everything in its path. But instead of running, Ryoga just smiles. He's got one last card to play. Dmitri sees that look on his face and starts to panic. Ryoga holds the pocket watch right in the path of the incoming beam. The system alerts him that the Kronos' pocket watch has detected the divine energy it needs. The watch drinks in the power of a constellation, fulfilling the requirements for its secret skill. The entire world begins to warp as the artifact starts winding back time. Ryoga laughs to himself. If he doesn't have a god's power, he'll just steal theirs. The blast hits full force, but Ryoga's form is already starting to vanish. Dmitri realizes he's been played, but it's far too late to stop it. Ryoga clenches his fist around the glowing watch, ready to put Odin's power to good use in the past. Ryoga gives the 7 great families a final middle finger, promising to tear them all down in his next life. The gears of the pocket watch click into place as it drinks in the divine energy. A blinding flash of white light swallows everything, tearing Ryoga away from the battlefield and through time. He wakes up staring at a plain ceiling light, the silence of the room a stark contrast to the burning capital. He bolts upright, gasping for air as if he's still feeling the weight of the attack. His heart is pounding against his ribs, and sweat pours down his face as he tries to ground himself in reality. He takes a shaky breath, his eyes darting around the small, cramped space. It's unmistakable. He's back in the tiny house where he used to live before everything went to hell. He looks down at the watch in his hand, wondering if he really managed to pull off the impossible. He grits his teeth at the memory of Dmitri's pathetic reasons for trying to kill him. A system window pops up, confirming it's the broken Kronos' pocket watch, a holy relic that can only perform this miracle once. The watch face is shattered, the price paid for sending his soul 23 years into the past. Ryoga lets out a dark chuckle. His gamble worked perfectly, even without the help of some constellation. He realizes he landed right on the day the system first appeared, just after he left the orphanage. The system initializes, showing his base stats and his innate trait clear mind, which makes him immune to mental attacks. He's prompted to choose a starting class from martial artist, mage, or priest. In his first life, he picked the magic path without thinking, but he's not going to make that same mistake twice. He sits back on his bed, deciding to hold off on picking a class until he can find something that actually suits his plans. He throws on a jacket and heads out, ready to put his knowledge as a former 9-star hunter to good use. He makes a beeline for the Natsuhabara Hunter Market, the hub for all things supernatural in the city. He steps into a jewelry shop where the clerk greets him with a professional smile. She starts her sales pitch about rings from the Mangas company, but Ryoga cuts her off and asks for the Ring of Dark Gloom. The shopkeeper freezes, the friendly look on her face replaced by pure confusion. She warns him that the ring is heavily cursed, but he doesn't care and just asks for the price. A few minutes later, he's walking back through the market, holding a small black box. The clerk was practically begging him to reconsider, warning that they won't give any refunds for whatever happens next. He just spent $2 million, literally half of his entire net worth, on an item that most hunters wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. The ring is a rare-grade item, inhabited by shadows, that inflicts a mental curse on anyone who wears it. Ryoga knows a secret about this ring that nobody else does, and it's the key to his new path. He slides the ring onto his finger, and a wave of dark, murky energy immediately begins to swirl around his hand. A wicked smile crosses his face as he prepares to face the trial hidden within the curse. Suddenly, his surroundings melt away, replaced by a swirling void of dark, glitchy clouds. He finds himself standing alone in the middle of a mental landscape, waiting for the curse to manifest. A massive, glowing version of Dmitry Romanov appears, radiating the same golden energy as before. Ryoga looks up at the towering phantom, unfazed by the sheer scale of the vision. The phantom mocks him, claiming that a forsaken necromancer can't possibly harm someone with divine grace. The giant raises a hand, golden light flaring as it prepares to crush his mind. A massive finger points down at him like a pillar of holy fire. The giant fist descends, ready to obliterate his consciousness. The attack strikes with the force of a falling star, drowning everything in a sea of gold. Ryoga just smirks behind the shadows. The system confirms that the mental interference has been completely blocked. Thanks to his clear mind trait, he stands perfectly still as the mental attack shatters uselessly against his total immunity. The mental world around Ryoga shatters like brittle glass, as a system notification confirms he has successfully cleared the ring's trial. A blue flame ignites in his eye as the necromancer's power within the ring awakens. He knows that his path was made possible by his refusal to resist the curse. Standing before a towering, shadowy phantom, the protagonist declares that he doesn't need a constellation's grace to wage war against the 7 great families. With a dark resolve, Ryoga determines that he will forge a new path and create a constellation that will choose him, a necromancer. In a dimension beyond time, Ryoga Chinen stands before a massive spectral presence. The giant bellows, demanding to know what kind of fool would dare to be so disrespectful in his presence. Ryoga doesn't even flinch, just staring back with a confident smirk. He keeps it polite but direct, greeting the deposed king of the Titans, Cronus. Cronus narrows his eyes, his gaze heavy with ancient power. He notices the object Ryoga is holding, his own broken pocket watch. The Titan realizes this little one is the one who managed to turn back the hands of time. Ryoga confirms it. He's the one who used the relic to get here. Cronus admits Ryoga must have been quite the powerhouse to pull off a regression, but he wants to know the real reason he was awakened. This is the god who swallowed his own sons to prevent his downfall, only to be forgotten after losing to Olympus. Ryoga knows that despite being forgotten, the fire for vengeance still burns deep in the god's chest. He cuts straight to the point and asks if Cronus wants revenge. The Titan is stunned into silence for a second. That's a bold question for a mortal to ask. Ryoga lays out his proposal. If Cronus becomes his guardian star, he'll help him settle that score with Olympus. The offer insults Cronus's pride. A mere human, someone without even a drop of divine power, is telling a god to submit. Ryoga grips the pocket watch tighter as the tension in the room spikes. He points out that he reached the 9-star rank once before without anyone's help. Plus, Zeus is at the top of his own hit list. He's going after all the great families that betrayed him, and destroying them will strip Olympus of its influence on Earth. Cronus scoffs, telling him his ambition is tiny compared to a god's wrath. Besides, even if he wanted to help, Ryoga is a necromancer. Their natures don't match up. Ryoga argues that while Cronus is the god of time, he's also the god of harvest. That changes things. Usually, stars only contract with hunters who resonate with their nature. Cronus looks back on his own legacy as a deity presiding over the cycle of the seasons. The scythe, which represents the harvest, is the exact same symbol as the Grim Reapers. Both deal with the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In Ryoga's eyes, they're cut from the same cloth. Cronus snaps, furious that a human would dare link his divine nature to death. The entire divine realm begins to shake as the Titan's anger boils over. Ryoga tells him to shut up and listen. Now isn't the time for posturing. He asks if the Titan really plans to spend the rest of eternity as a powerless, forgotten name. If he's okay with being weaker than the gods who replaced him, Ryoga is fine walking away. But he came here believing Cronus would choose revenge, even if it meant rewriting his very nature. Ryoga knows he's gambling everything on this. If he can't convince Cronus, he's hit a dead end. The Titan goes quiet, considering the offer. Finally, he speaks. He hasn't forgotten his revenge for a single second. He's going to test Ryoga's resolve. The idea of a god of harvest defying providence is a wild concept, but they're doing it. Cronus warns him that the process of revering a god's nature will be agonizing. He reaches out with a glowing, massive hand. If Ryoga can survive the pain, the contract is on. Blinding light erupts as the divine energy makes contact. Ryoga braces himself. He didn't expect it to start this suddenly. Cronus speaks with authority, appointing Ryoga as his proxy and his saint. Ryoga can barely believe his ears. A saint, he's a necromancer. Holy power floods into him, acting as a direct channel for the constellation. Now the dark mana of a necromancer and the pure light of a saint are clashing inside his body at the same time. Ryoga fights to stay awake, knowing if he passes out now, he'll miss his only chance to secure a guardian star. Cronus watches him intently as the raw divine energy continues to flow. The Titan simply tells the boy to hang in there and endure the pain. The next thing he knows, the sounds of the divine realm are replaced by the hustle and bustle of an airport. He's back on home turf, suitcase in hand. Ryoga takes a breath of fresh air. There really is no place like Japan. But he's not exactly alone. A tiny, chibi version of Cronus is floating right beside him, amazed at how much the world has changed. The miniature god zips around, marveling at the cruel and great nature of time. He turns to his new contractor, asking if he agrees. A system window pops up to announce a new star in the pantheon, the giant who defies heaven. Ryoga just thinks for an ancient god, this guy sure talks a lot. Cronus might be a constellation again, but with 0 worshippers, he's basically a god with no budget. Not that it stops him from being cheerful. Ryoga reflects on the gamble he took, forcing a Titan king into the mold of a Grim Reaper saint by exploiting their shared concepts. Tiny Cronus is just happy to be back in the loop, telling Ryoga he expects his name to be famous soon. Ryoga checks his status and realizes he is now a hybrid of a high-tier saint and a necromancer, all while the old man continues to ramble incessantly in his ear. His new Saint of the White Knight title boosts his holy spells and lets him use necromancy without any class penalties. The skull icon of his class glows with an eerie, divine light. He even got the White Knight trait, allowing him to swap holy power and spirit power at will. He also unlocked Life Drain, a holy spell that's been twisted by death to steal life force for healing or buffs. Normally, these two powers would never work together. Wielding two completely different energies like this is basically a cheat code. Even Ryoga has to admit that this combo is completely broken. He asks if the tiny god had this all calculated from the very beginning. Cronus just laughs, reminding him that he was the king of gods for a reason. Ryoga starts mapping out his next steps to power up. He needs a training ground, and an old gate nearby seems like the best starting point. He decides on the ancient garden. It's the perfect place to test his new dual nature powers. Looking back at how it all started, Ryoga had just cleared the trial of the Ring of Darkness. The ring's rank immediately jumped from rare to epic. That's when the big moment arrived. He had to pick a class from 4 options tailored specifically to him. He didn't hesitate to pick Necromancer, a class that uses corpses and souls to fuel its strength. Choosing it first granted him a unique selection bonus. He gained the Guide of Death trait, which makes his spirit power usage way more efficient. Ryoga was pretty happy with how things were kicking off. Though he quickly noticed, he only had 2 usable skills for the time being. The first was the essential, Raise Undead. The second was Bone Control, which lets him manipulate skeletal remains at will. All his past knowledge is flowing back into his head, but his physical rank is back to level 1. He knows he can grow stronger by following the book, but that's not his ultimate goal. Normal leveling isn't enough to reach the transcendent realm of a 9-star. Being a necromancer this early is a massive advantage, but it's still not enough. To settle his score with Dimitri, he knew a guardian star was his only real option. Ryoga wastes no time and hops on a plane, heading straight for the site of his next big gamble. He arrives at the ruins of the Temple of Cronus, which in this era is nothing more than a spot for tourists and researchers. History remembers them as the ancient constellations who lost their light after being defeated by Zeus and the gods of Olympus. While some, like the sun god Helios, accepted the new order to remain active, others were cast into total obscurity. Ryoga stands in the heart of the crumbling sanctuary, looking for a presence that hasn't quite vanished from this world yet. He pulls out a cracked pocket watch, a relic linked to a master far different from the gods who bow to Olympus. With a confident smirk, he asks if it's finally time to meet a fallen constellation. He slams the pocket watch onto the ancient altar with every ounce of strength he has. The relic responds instantly, erupting in a violent surge of golden energy that illuminates the entire temple. Reality itself seems to tear open as a massive vortex of mana swallows the ruins. When the light fades, he finds himself in a magnificent divine hall, a hidden sanctuary floating amongst the stars. Ryoga stands before a towering stained glass window, having finally reached the heart of a celestial palace. Suddenly, a booming voice echoes through the void, demanding to know just who has dared to enter. The sky is bright and clear over the city today. Right in the middle of a park, a massive glowing portal hums with energy. These gates are doorways to other dimensions that hunters have to clear. This one's the Ancient Garden, a fixed type, meaning it doesn't disappear until the boss is dead. Ryoga Chinen stands before the blue rift, ready to see what his new class can actually do. All around him, hunters are busy grouping up. Ryoga remembers the days he spent dragging around useless teams. Just as he's about to head in, someone calls out to him. A guy in heavy armor steps forward, offering Ryoga a spot in his party. Ryoga doesn't even hesitate. He's better off alone. The armored hunter is a bit taken aback, but he takes the rejection in stride. His teammates watch Ryoga walk away, wondering if a newbie like him will even survive on his own. One of the girls tells the leader not to sweat it. The guy made his choice. Ryoga just smirks. He isn't here to play nice. He's here to test a very specific set of skills. The world shifts as he steps through, and a screen confirms he's entered the ancient garden. It looks like a peaceful forest, but the silence is way too heavy. Deep in the brush, something small and ugly is waiting with a rusty blade. Ryoga knows the drill. He's just waiting for the first thing to jump out. Right on cue, a goblin dives from the trees. The creature screeches, lunging with its knife. But Ryoga's reflexes are on another level. He catches the little monster by the throat midair. The goblin's eyes go wide. It definitely wasn't expecting this. Instead of just snapping its neck, Ryoga activates his inherent trait, White Knight. He triggers Life Drain, a holy spell that doesn't just kill, it steals. Spiritual power converts into holy energy as Ryoga begins to strip the life right out of the creature. He notes that the sensation isn't all that different from using regular spiritual power. Dark energy swirls as the goblin's essence is ripped away. Ryoga feels the surge of power flowing into his own body. The goblin shrivels into a husk, and a notification pops up. His basic stats just went up. He stares at the screen, stunned. Every kill with Life Drain gives him a permanent boost to his strength and agility. He goes on a tear, leaving a pile of shriveled corpses in his wake. A golden light flashes. He's leveled up. He does the math and realizes 25 kills basically equal an entire level's worth of bonus points. Suddenly, a tiny version of Cronus pops up on his shoulder. The god cackles, asking his contractor how he likes the new power. Ryoga has to admit it's pretty broken. Cronus immediately starts demanding some respect for his greatness. With the first part of his training done, Ryoga stands over a fresh corpse. Now it's time to see what his necromancy can do. Eerie teal flames flicker around the fallen goblin's head. Ryoga commands the soul to respond as he activates Raise Undead. The corpse's fingers twitch against the grass. Muscle and bone begin to knit back together with unnatural speed. The goblin pushes itself up, its eyes glowing with a ghostly light. Ryoga looks over his first creation, a faint smile on his face. The system confirms the quality. This zombie retained almost 100% of its original strength. The system confirms the first summon is a grade 1 zombie. Ryoga is pleased. At this level, the creature should be able to hold its own in a 1-star dungeon. Just then, more rustling comes from the trees. 3 more goblins emerge, weapons drawn. This is the perfect chance for a real-world combat test. Ryoga crosses his arms and gives the command, "Go." The zombie charges forward, trailing wisps of dark energy. It lunges with animalistic fury, catching the lead goblin by surprise. The undead summon pins its living kin to the ground with ease. The 2 remaining goblins, seeing that, swung a mace and smashed it right into this undead. But it doesn't even flinch, continuing to tear apart the prey beneath it. Ryoga explains the advantage. Since it's already a zombie, it won't die even if its vitals are struck. While the group is still busy trying to rescue their comrade, Ryoga just goes around grabbing them by the neck one by one. Ryoga steps in to finish the job, activating White Knight to strip the creature of its life force. After finishing the life drain, he tosses the corpse to the ground. The remaining goblin sees this and starts shaking like a leaf. For this pack, the world has just been turned upside down. The goblin frantically looks for an escape route, but finds its path blocked by Ryoga in front and the undead goblin from behind. And just like that, it became another meal for the undead. Once the goblin officially kicked the bucket, Ryoga's real experiment began. He wondered, would this skill actually work on something that's already dead? Success, +0, 1 strength, and +0, 1 agility, just as usual. It turns out it actually works. Life Drain is even more versatile than he had ever imagined. With the mechanics figured out, he decides it's time to pick up the pace. In the shadows of the forest, more eyes begin to glow. For a necromancer, getting that first kill is always the hardest part. Once the first one is down, the goal is already half achieved. He triggers Raise Undead again and again. Creating the first one was a struggle, but every subsequent summon comes easier. The system shows a high completion rate for his new squad. All 4 zombies have nearly 98% of their original power. The small pack of undead snarls, ready for orders. Ryoga watches them, a satisfied smirk on his face. This is exactly what he needed. In his mind, necromancers really are the best class. He lets his minions loose, and they start tearing through the local goblin population. One zombie takes a direct hit, but doesn't even flinch. The regular goblin freezes, confused why its blade didn't stop the monster. The zombies are relentless, overwhelming their prey with pure numbers. It's a bloodbath in the clearing, as the undead horde does the heavy lifting. Chibai Cronus floats beside Ryoga, complaining that his contractor should fight with a bit more dignity. Ryoga tells him to get used to it. This is just how he operates. A screen pops up. He's already hit his command limit of 20 undead. He looks at the dark energy flickering around his hands. Behind him, a full army of zombie goblins stands in formation. They sweep through the forest, clearing everything in their path. A group of regular goblins finds themselves surrounded and completely outmatched. Suddenly, a streak of fire cuts through the air. A female archer with a black bob cut draws her bow. Her fire arrow slams into one of the goblins, igniting it instantly. Ryoga immediately tells his army to halt, looking toward the source of the shot. Ryoga looks toward the trees, his expression cold as he demands the intruders stop hiding and show themselves. A heavy boot crushes the grass as someone steps out from the dense undergrowth of the ancient garden. 3 hunters emerge, led by a man in a steel breastplate, the twin shadow leader. He looks confused, demanding to know who Ryoga is. Chibai Cronus floats by Ryoga's head, sensing the sudden, sharp shift in his contractor's mood. Ryoga stares at the group, the pieces clicking into place. He recognizes them now. They are the twin shadow hunters. A dark shadow falls over Ryoga's face as he remembers them from his previous life. They were the very ones who tried to assassinate him before he regressed. Ryoga recognizes the 2 hunters in front of him, Yuma and Yuka Rendo. In his past life, they were known as the infamous twin shadow hunters. Dealing with them back then was a huge headache, but right now, they're just beginners. They're only 1-star hunters at this point. Plus, there were only 2 of them in the future, not 3. Cronus suggests taking them out while they're still weak, but Ryoga isn't interested. They were only hired guns in the future, so he doesn't hold a personal grudge. Yuma stares at the undead minion, asking if Ryoga is the one controlling it. Ryoga realizes it'll be a long time before the world actually understands what a necromancer is. He casually confirms the zombie is his summon. He sizes the group up. Since he needs someone to haul his loot, these future legends might just be perfect for the job. Most people enter gates for the money anyway, so he decides to make them an offer. Ryoga asks if they want to work together, catching Yuma completely off guard. He proposes a deal where he handles all the combat and they just focus on collecting the mana stones. The split, a steep 80-20. He waits for their answer, knowing they're desperate for easy pocket money. The group pulls back to discuss the weird offer in private. Yuka is immediately suspicious, and Hebara agrees. A hunter who summons zombies is unheard of. Ryoga starts yawning. He doesn't have all day for them to make up their minds. He tells them they're taking too long. Seeing him about to walk, Yuma quickly stops him. They agree to the job, but try to push for a more even 50-50 split. Even with that, they'd only be making a small fraction of the total. Ryoga isn't negotiating. He tells them it's 70-30 or the deal is off. Yuma has no choice but to fold. Hebara is still shaking in his boots, but Yuma tells him to man up. If Ryoga really wanted them dead, they wouldn't have lasted this long anyway. Yuma watches Ryoga walk into the gate with 0 equipment and absolute confidence. It's definitely unusual. A few hours later, the forest is filled with the sound of someone completely spent. Hebara collapses on the grass, begging for a break. Yuka is right there with him. She's hit her absolute limit. They've been hauling a massive pile of mana stones, and it's clearly taking its toll. Yuma wipes the sweat from his brow. He knew Ryoga was strong, but this is ridiculous. The scale of the slaughter is beyond anything they imagined. Goblins are falling left and right. Ryoga drops another corpse in front of them, calling it more cash for them to process. Yuma desperately asks if they can finally take a rest. But the zombies aren't stopping. One of them snaps a goblin's neck like it's nothing. Ryoga points out even more work for them to do. To him, this is just efficiency. He flashes a bright smile and tells them to take their time. The irony isn't lost on the exhausted party. The trio is left speechless. At this rate, they're convinced Ryoga isn't even human. The immediate area is finally cleared of monsters. With a moment of peace, Ryoga decides to check how much he's progressed. The status window pops up, showing a massive increase across all his core stats. In just 3 hours of grinding, his specs have already reached the level of a level 4 hunter. Life drain is broken. His actual level went up as well, making the grind more than worth it. Now it's finally time to deal with the boss of this gate. They approach a clearing where a group of elite goblins is waiting. The goblin shaman sneers, sensing a foolish human has entered its domain. It's ready for a fight. Ryoga looks at the boss and scoffs. To him, this goblin is just acting like a king. Yuma is shaking, warning Ryoga not to provoke something this dangerous. The goblin shaman glares back with a glowing red eye, ordering his minions to bring the human before him. Dozens of goblins roar and charge all at once. The shaman wants Ryoga torn apart until there's nothing left. Ryoga just stands his ground. The first wave slams into his summons, and the forest turns into a chaotic battlefield. His undead minions fight back, but they're taking heavy damage. Blood splatters as the goblins start cutting through his ranks. A system notification pops up. His summon count is starting to drop. Ryoga isn't worried. He tells the fallen corpses to answer his call. Dark energy swirls around the fresh bodies on the ground. New summons rise up immediately, replacing the ones he lost. The battle rages on as the new reinforcements tear into the goblin army. Yuma watches in shock. Ryoga is turning the very enemies he just killed into his own soldiers. The shaman starts chanting a dark incantation, realizing his initial wave isn't enough. He raises a skull-topped staff high into the air. A totem slams into the earth, sending a shockwave of red energy across the clearing. The totem of valor empowers every goblin in the vicinity, making them even more aggressive. The shaman brags about how his totem debuffs his enemies while making his allies invincible. Ryoga just stared at him with a blank expression, asking him to say that again, right as his minion pulled the totem from the ground and snapped it in half. The boss turns around, fuming that a human would dare to be so arrogant. He declares that he won't let a mere human touch his sacred totem. Instantly, a succession of skull totems slammed into the ground all around them. But without him even having to give the order, his undead minions had already snapped one of the totems in half. And just like they were programmed, the rest of the minions followed suit, completely destroying every single totem the boss had just summoned. The shaman gripped his staff tight, his entire body trembling with pure rage. Ryoga just smiles, asking the boss if he's feeling frustrated already. Infuriated, the shaman raises his staff for one final, devastating move. He calls upon the incantation of madness, slamming the staff down with everything he's got. Yuma and his group can barely watch. The dark energy coming off the boss is suffocating. The system confirms the madness has been activated, granting the goblins a massive 50% boost to their stats. The goblins go into a frenzy, tearing through Ryoga's remaining forces. Count drops to 18. It keeps falling, 15 summons left, then 10. The summons are being slaughtered faster than Ryoga can replace them. Count is at 10. Blood soaks the forest floor as another minion is crushed. Only 8 remain. The shaman laughs, confident that the battle is over. Ryoga notes that the staff was indeed his trump card. He stared at the staff, made entirely of bone, and realized it was the shaman's trump card. That changed everything. The boss brags about how he crafted the weapon using the grudges of his fallen kin. Ryoga confirms it one last time. So that staff is made of bone, right? He heroically declared that this battle had just become a piece of cake. He reaches out and activates bone control. Dark energy ripples from his fingertips. The shaman's eyes go wide as his own weapon starts vibrating and pulling out of his hands. The bone staff is yanked through the air, pulled by an irresistible force toward the human. Ryoga catches the staff effortlessly. A system message rings out. The madness incantation has been interrupted. Stunned and empty-handed, the goblin shaman can only stammer in disbelief, demanding to know what happened. Another notification appears, explaining that the goblins have snapped out of their frenzy, but the backlash has drained their strength and agility. Ryoga looks down at the boss with a cold, mocking smile, holding the stolen staff and daring him to try using his favorite spell now. The shaman is losing his mind. He has no idea how Ryoga is pulling this off. A system notification pops up. The goblins have snapped out of their frenzy, and the backlash has gutted their stats by 30%. Ryoga stands there holding the shaman's own staff, mocking him for being so proud of magic that just failed. He activates a new skill, bone control. It lets him manipulate any bone as long as he infuses it with mana. Ryoga's impressed. The response time on these old bones is way better than anything he's used before. He decides to return the favor and launches the skull staff straight back at its owner. The staff cuts through the air like a guided missile. The shaman barely has time to gasp before it reaches him. It punches a clean hole right through the boss's chest. The shaman collapses, stone dead. Ryoga doesn't waste the body, immediately activating life drain to siphon off some extra stats. He's happy with the haul. Taking down a boss early on is a massive level-up shortcut. He hears movement behind him and turns to look. The rookies show up just in time to see the aftermath, looking completely stunned. While they stare, Ryoga starts harvesting the shaman's blood into a bottle. He almost forgot this part, nodding that the life drain took up most of what was left. He casually tells the party to handle the cleanup while he takes a breather. The group looks at the literal carpet of goblin corpses, wondering if they're actually supposed to bag all of them. The scene shifts to the city of Natsuhabara under a clear blue sky. A hunter steps through the dungeon portal. Ryoga leads the way, looking like he just went for a casual stroll. Behind him, the rookies are struggling under the weight of massive bags filled with mana stones. The crowd starts whispering. They can't believe a small team of 4 hauled out that much loot. Ryoga suggests hitting up a local shop to cash in their earnings. The warrior agrees, saying they should handle it themselves to make sure they get a fair price. Ryoga gives them a sharp look, asking if they really think he'd trust people he just met with all that gold. The rookies immediately panic, babbling about how hard they worked and how they'd never screw him over. Ryoga's expression softens as he laughs. He was just messing with them. He asks for a ballpark figure on the loot. The warrior estimates its worth about 6 million. Ryoga's eyes land on the shaman's staff, sticking out of a bag. He asks why it's being ignored. The warrior explains it's basically junk. A system window reveals it's the Staff of Grudges, a rare priest weapon that's heavily cursed. The stats are great, but the Curse of Confusion is a deal-breaker for most players. The warrior adds that even if a priest could use it, they couldn't handle that much spiritual power. Ryoga just smirks. He asks if he can just take the staff as part of his share. The party is caught off guard. He offers to have its value deducted from his gold cut when they settle the bill. The warrior won't hear it. He tells Ryoga to just take it for free, since they wouldn't even be alive without him. The rest of the team agrees immediately. They're happy to let him have the trash item. Ryoga smiles. He's starting to really like the way this team works. He tells them to meet up for another dive tomorrow before walking away. The next day, Ryoga returns to the dungeon entrance. A message confirms he's entered the ancient garden. He's already back at it, standing over a fresh kill while his mana flares up. Ryoga asks the group if they've got any juice left for another round. The whole party is slumped over on the grass, surrounded by a mountain of loot. The warrior admits they're completely tapped out and can't handle another fight today. Their bags are literally bursting at the seams with mana stones. Ryoga tells them to head back to town without him while he finishes up. He continues deeper into the forest, trailed by his army of undead goblins. Cronus pops out, asking why he purposely sent his mules away. Ryoga says what he's about to do next is strictly off the record. No witnesses. He makes his way to the north side of the ancient garden. The swampy area is quiet, but something is definitely moving in the water. Glowing red eyes track him from the darkness of the bushes. A pack of murlocs suddenly leaps out for an ambush. One of them lunges at him with a guttural growl. Ryoga's undead summons intercept the strike instantly. The murlocs gasped in pain and fury. It was the first time they had ever encountered an opponent so numerous and ferocious. But these murlocs weren't just pushovers. They immediately drove their metal spears straight into the brainless goblins. The forest erupted into a bloody massacre between the frogmen and Ryoga's squad. The number of goblins began to dwindle. It was a literal massacre. Before his summons could even get close, they were already being turned into shish kebabs by those spears. Ryoga watches calmly, nodding that since frogmen are stronger than goblins, This was the only way it could end. He extends his hand, activating potion control to guide his attack. He fires his skull staff like a harpoon, impaling a frogman through the stomach. A system window explains oil shower. It's a skill that shrugs off physical piercing damage. The frogman just grins with a staff stuck in its gut. It didn't even hurt. Ryoga's a little annoyed. His basic attacks aren't cutting it against this passive defense. The guy lunged forward and stomped straight onto the staff. An act of 99x violence, a true test of ultimate power. And just like that, the staff skewered the frogman right through. Realizing he needed more juice, he began funneling even more pure spiritual energy into the weapon. He uses potion control again, but this time it hits with enough force to shatter the monster's defense. The heavy mana usage drains his spiritual power by 35%. Efficiency is taking a hit. He stands over a pile of frog corpses and begins the incantation for Ray's undead. He's pushing his limits, but he knows he can still handle the strain. The dead frogmen's eyes ignite with a haunting green glow as they climb back to their feet. They lunge forward, now fighting under Ryoga's command. The massive exp drop from the grind is enough to finally bump him up to level 6. Ryoga smirks. At this rate, he'll be back at his peak power in no time. He looks up, vowing to hunt down the Magic King and settle the score once and for all. He arrives at a hidden sunlit clearing filled with ancient ruins. Ryoga walks toward a massive stone altar, his undead army trailing behind him. He pulls a pulsing green heart out from a bundle of cloth. Cronus floats over, wanting to know exactly what kind of crazy plan he's cooking up now. Ryoga tells him to pipe down and watch the show as he uncorks the shaman's blood. As the blood hits the heart, it begins to beat violently, glowing with a sickly light. Ryoga watches the pulsing organ with a predatory grin. The ritual is working perfectly. Ryoga is stoked to have unlocked a secret zone that won't be discovered for years. A system message confirms he's unraveled the ancient garden's hidden secret and is being transported. He suddenly finds himself in the middle of a colossal, sun-drenched stone arena. Ryoga takes a step forward, testing the ground of the ancient proving grounds. He thinks about how he never managed to find this place before his regression, but now it's finally his. He stands his ground, flanked by his frogman undead, ready for whatever is coming. A massive, blue-scaled clawed foot slams into the dirt, surrounded by a swirl of magical energy. Ryoga looks up, his expression hardening as he sizes up the new arrival. A prompt appears, stating that this trial is restricted to only a single player. The arena itself challenges him to prove his worth and potential through the trial. A predatory smirk spreads across Ryoga's face. He's found his next target. A towering Dragonian trial guardian materializes, looking down at the intruder. The clock is ticking. He has 10 minutes to survive. Welcome to the ancient proving grounds, I. This arena was built by the constellations of the Pantheon to separate the elite hunters from the trash. The Dragonian trial guardian stands ready. It's an elite soldier from the Dragon Legion, and it's here to test Ryoga. The clock is ticking. Ryoga has 10 minutes to survive if he wants to see those rewards. Cronus is already laughing at him, betting he won't even last 10 seconds with his pathetic stats. The little guy is already looking for a new saintess, but Ryoga isn't planning on dying today. Ryoga knows that even if the monster's power is scaled down for a 1-star, this is still going to be a brutal fight. The ground tremors as the massive soldier takes its first step. Ryoga holds up a hand, telling the beast to wait for just a second. He needs a moment to finish a little modification on his summons. He figures that since villains in stories always wait for the hero to transform, this guy should do the same. Behind him, his frogmen start bubbling and warping into something far more grotesque. Cronus is actually impressed. He's pulling off an on-the-spot modification mid-battle. Ryoga invites the monster to come at him. After all, he hasn't forgotten his life as a master necromancer. The Dragonian's eyes flare. It's tired of waiting. It charges forward with a roar. Ryoga's summons launch into the air to meet the attack. The zombies swarm over the giant, grabbing hold wherever they can. The beast is confused as they latch onto its body. The frogmen didn't have a single tooth in their heads, yet they still gaped their mouths as wide as possible to bite into the Dragonian Guardian. It looked absolutely hilarious. The cannon fodder summons just clung to the Dragonian Guardian like glue, leaving him completely flustered. His face twisted with extreme irritation as he began flailing his limbs in a desperate counterattack. These frogmen are literal cannon fodder. With just a single punch, they explode like firecrackers. But the Master of Schemes has finally unmasked his true intentions. It turns out Ryoga's real goal in ordering the frogmen to charge in was to use them as suicide bombers. The moment the Dragonian Guardian crushed one of them, level 12 acid poison from the cannon fodder frog's blood began melting right through the beast's reinforced armored scales. Ryoga smiles. He sacrificed their strength and agility just to make that poison lethal. The dragon soldier slams the ground in pain, trying to shake off the swarming zombies. It realized it couldn't play by Ryoga's rules anymore and needed to turn the tables. Its feet crushed the very ground as it braced itself for an all-out final strike. The beast let out a terrifying roar, lunging straight for the commander for a decapitation strike. Ryoga had to admit, this guy was surprisingly tough to have solved that problem so cleanly. He pumped spiritual power into his staff, temporarily boosting its defensive stats. He catches a massive blow, the impact vibrating through his entire body. Even with the poison eating it alive, this thing is still incredibly strong. Sparks fly as Ryoga struggles to hold the beast back. The Dragonian growls, lunging forward for one last desperate strike. Ryoga counters with bone control. The sharp bone staff thrusts straight at the Guardian, skewering the monster's arm clean through. The beast let out a pained shriek as its momentum was completely cut short. Seizing the opportunity, Ryoga ordered the cannon fodder to dive in and finish it off immediately. The zombies swarm over the bleeding Guardian once again. The Dragonian's strength is fatting fast under the relentless assault. It's completely surrounded, with no way to escape the poison. It tries to crush them with its bare hands, but each blow just releases more acid, sealing the monster's fate. Ryoga gives the beast a little credit. That was a decent last-ditch effort. But even with all that power, the Dragonian Trial Guardian finally hits the dirt. Ryoga's bone staff finished the job with absolute finality. He stands there, staff in hand, as the dark energy from his summons begins to settle. The trial is officially over, and the arena falls dead silent. He reaches out his hand, ready to claim the prizes he worked so hard for. He activates his holy power, but he's not looking to heal anyone, he's looking to harvest. He triggers Life Drain to suck every bit of value out of the fallen Guardian. A system message pops up, confirming he's officially cleared the first stage of the ancient proving grounds. Cronus is genuinely impressed, he pulled it off, and Ryoga just reminds him that he wasn't planning on dying here. He receives a new engraving on his soul, the Crest of Endurance. It's a Transcendent Rank passive buff that cuts his damage delay and boosts his mana recovery permanently. Ryoga checks the new stats and nods. It's a massive power spike for someone at level 1. But the real prize is the Dragonian corpse itself, which is a goldmine for a necromancer. He plans to use it to create a summon that transcends its original form, refusing to let these prime materials go to waste. To do that, though, he's going to need some high-level alchemical tools. He heads over to Kishu Prefecture, tracking down a very specific man from his past life. He arrives at a nondescript workshop that looks pretty ordinary for now. Ryoga realizes that even after his regression, some places haven't changed a bit. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the building, sending flames bursting through the walls. Ryoga just steps through the black smoke, completely unfazed by the blast. A researcher stumbles out of the wreckage, coughing his lungs out. Ryoga smiles to himself. Everything is going exactly according to plan. He found him, the future legendary alchemist Rinneya Shinya. In the future, Rinneya becomes world famous for his potions, but right now, he's just a struggling researcher with a blown-up lab. Rinneya is understandably on edge, asking what this random stranger wants in his private lab. Ryoga introduces himself and gets straight to the point. He needs to borrow some alchemy equipment. Rinneya just stares at him with a look of pure disgust and confusion. but Ryoga isn't here to beg. He's here to offer a deal that Renia can't refuse. He mentions that he knows exactly what Renia is researching, the formula for mass-producing mid-tier health potions. Renia's face just goes white. Ryoga offers to help him finish the impossible formula, leaving the alchemist completely speechless. He steps up to the bench and starts grabbing test tubes. He starts mixing and stabilizing the volatile liquids with the precision of a master. Renia can't believe what he's seeing. Ryoga just stabilized a potion that was literally seconds away from exploding. Ryoga just brushes it off. This is a breakthrough Renia wouldn't have discovered for years on his own. To prove it actually works, Ryoga grabs a scalpel and asks if he wants a demonstration. Without even blinking, he slices a deep gash right into his own forearm. He pours the newly stabilized potion directly onto the open wound. The liquid starts bubbling white as it immediately reacts with his flesh. Within seconds, the skin knits itself back together perfectly, without leaving even a scar. A bright light flashes as the healing process finishes. Renia is absolutely floored. He's been struggling with this for years, and a complete stranger just solved it in minutes. Renia stands there in complete shock, his hands trembling as he tries to process the miracle he just witnessed. He rushes forward to inspect Ryoga's arm, frantically checking to see if there's even a trace of the wound left behind. Ryoga dangles the glowing test tube in front of him, asking if he's curious about the formula. Renia practically begs him for it, his eyes wide with desperate excitement. With a dark, knowing smirk, Ryoga suggests that in exchange for the secret, the alchemist should lend him a hand for a little while. Ryoga keeps it professional, offering a partnership and high-level potion recipes. He throws out a 60-40 royalty split to sweeten the deal. Renia Shinya is listening, exactly what Ryoga wanted. The alchemist is hooked, but Ryoga is playing a much deeper game. A pulse of mana confirms the terms. He's already got his eyes on his next project, a massive armored undead. Back in the lab, Renia Shinya is still trying to wrap his head around the guy's knowledge. Ryoga explains his plan to process the corpse into something special. He drops the cool act for a second, asking for a little help with the heavy lifting. Renia Shinya isn't having it since they haven't even signed a contract. He huffs and walks off, but Ryoga isn't worried. Cronus watches from the side while Ryoga notes the guy's caution. Turns out, Renia Shinya used to be a top researcher until his boss stole all the credit and forced him out. That betrayal left him trusting absolutely no one. Cronus sighs, thinking the human world is nothing but obsession and backstabbing. Ryoga cuts straight to the point. The guy is just scared he doesn't have the skills. He offers a challenge to prove himself. Renia Shinya looks him in the eye, finally curious enough to bite. He takes the tool, agreeing to a trial run. Ryoga starts the timer, giving him a specific ratio for melting mana stones. The alchemist finishes in record time, surprising even Ryoga. He's definitely the right pick, but he's still clueless about Ryoga's real plans for the corpse. Ryoga starts pouring the catalyst liquid over the remains. He begins carving magic formulas directly into the bones. They spend hours layering curses and enchantments. The process is repetitive and grueling, but neither of them stops. Renia Shinya goes full mad scientist until the work is finally done. Ryoga stretches, thinking it was quick, but for Renia Shinya, 3 days have vanished. He stares at Ryoga's back, trying to figure out who this guy really is. A level 1 hunter shouldn't be able to restart a heart with pure mana. Despite the weirdness, Renia Shinya can't deny the results sitting right in front of him. Ryoga starts to head out without another word. Renia Shinya stops him, officially accepting the original deal. He admits he'd be stuck on mid-grade potions for years if he stayed solo. If it advances his research, he's all in. Ryoga can't help but smirk. He welcomes his new, exclusive servant alchemist, though Renia Shinya misses the fine print. Now Ryoga just needs a core soul from an eldritch dragon. He makes a quick call to get things moving. Payment is confirmed, and he's already looking for more hands. The scene shifts to a dense, overgrown forest known as the Boundary. 3 rookie hunters showed up. looking quite formidable as they suited up in a brand new set of gear bought with their recent earnings. Ryoga tells the rookies to drop the poses and follow him. The rookie tank, a broad-shouldered guy in a green tunic, quickly agrees. As they trek through the tall grass, the tank mentions how dangerous this place has become since the northern gate fell. Ryoga just smirks, saying he's here to visit an old acquaintance. The tank looks skeptical. Pushing through the thick brush, Ryoga searches for a specific spot. Behind him, the rookie archer in her leather armor and the blonde mage follow closely. Suddenly, a massive gray foot crushes the grass beneath it. A giant orc lunges from the shadows, catching the group off guard. The rookie tank shouts it's a 2-star orc and tells Ryoga to back up, but the necromancer just sighs. He pulls out a large bone weapon, a processed ghoul bone, to see what it can really do. Activating bone control, Ryoga channels dark energy through the weapon. The orc's red eyes glow with murderous intent. It raises its spear, ready to skewer the intruder. Ryoga manipulated the bone blade, thrusting it straight at the orc's spear tip. He remains perfectly calm as the monster roars. It's a bad day to be an orc. The weapon slammed into the spear tip, knocking it off course, but it didn't stop there. Under Ryoga's manipulation, it continued its flight. It tears straight through the monster's torso, spraying blood across the clearing. Ryoga notes the beast is surprisingly durable since he missed the heart. Even with a hole in its chest, the orc grips the bone and refuses to go down. Blood continued to pour as the berserk orc ripped the bone shard out and hurled it away. The monster let out a guttural roar as it raised its fist and charged straight at the protagonist. It swings a desperate fist at Ryoga's head. A flash of green energy erupts, absorbing the impact. The rookie tank slides in with his shield just in time, and Ryoga commends his timing. Ryoga focuses, his eyes glowing with mana. He decides one spike isn't enough and ups the ante. 3 massive bone shards erupt from the air around the beast. They impale the orc from all sides, silencing its screams for good. The massive corpse hits the ground with a heavy thud. The rookie tank is speechless, staring at the monster Ryoga just soloed. Ryoga doesn't wait for praise, telling them to pick up the pace because the real work is starting. The tank follows, nervously asking if they're even heading the right way. Ryoga confirms they are as he stands beside the fallen monster. With a surge of necromancy, he raises the beast as a high-rank zombie. Looking out over a massive wooden fortress, he declares that their true target is inside the orc settlement. The rookie tank is feeling a bit lost and asks if they're even heading the right way. Ryoga just keeps walking, ignoring the question for a second. He eventually points out that the person he's looking for is waiting for them inside the orc settlement. The tank is down for whatever as long as there's money in it, but Ryoga's smile says there's more to this than just gold. The rest of the rookies are all laughs, just happy to be making some easy side cash. But looking at the trail of orc bodies they've left behind, it's clear this trip has been anything but easy for the monsters. Ryoga hits level 13 and keeps soaking up stats from the fallen orcs. He hits a wall, though. The system tells him he's reached the limit for how many stats he can drain from this race. He's not even mad. He knows everything has a limit eventually. As the sun starts to dip, he decides they've done enough hunting for the day. They set up camp and get a fire going to warm up. The rookies are impressed with his preparation, realizing they've already been out here for 3 days. Under the full moon, Ryoga notes that his stats have jumped quite a bit, so they're heading for the settlement tomorrow. The crew takes the news well and prepares to turn in. They say their goodnights, while the shadows of Ryoga's undead guards loom over the camp. Out in the dark, the orcs are still active, completely unaware of what's coming for them. The rookies are out cold, snoring their heads off in the tent. Ryoga finds a quiet spot on a rock to sit and think. He decides it's the perfect time to check out the new secrets he unlocked with his level up. He enters his mental library of knowledge, where the previous Lord of Death left all his research. He reaches for one of the books, ready to dive in. Too bad most of the good stuff is locked behind a level 45 requirement. He's stuck with the beginner guides, which is a bit of a slap in the face for a former 9-star master. He figures something is better than nothing and starts reading anyway. He spends the night buried in books, studying the basics. Even these entry-level scrolls have details that would blow a modern necromancer's mind. His eyes glow as he absorbs the info, refining his power. By morning, a system alert pops up. He's officially learned a new skill. The rookie mage was still fast asleep, dead to the world. Then a voice jolted him awake as a massive shadow loomed over his body. He nearly has a heart attack when he sees a massive, glowing-eyed orc standing right over his bed. Ryoga just laughs it off, telling him he's overreacting to his own summon. But the tank isn't so sure. The thing looks way different and way bigger than it did yesterday. Ryoga admits he did a little tinkering with the corpse overnight. He's turned it into an armored zombie, a much tougher summon with superhuman strength. He also unlocked bone armor and flesh writhing, giving him total control over the undead's physical form. With his new toys ready, he tells the group it's time to hit the orc settlement. The squad marches out, looking like a real army with those giant armored zombies in the lead. They finally reach the orc settlement, a big wooden fort built into the forest. The guards don't miss a beat and start screaming that enemies are at the gates. A whole mob of orc warriors comes pouring out, spears out and ready for a fight. Ryoga activates his bone control skill, blue energy swirling around his hand. A massive spike of bone energy blasts through the air like a lightning bolt. It slams into the orcs with enough force to shatter the ground beneath them. He tells the monsters to stop making such a fuss as he holds a razor-sharp bone spike. The orc warriors look on in shock, realizing they're facing something they don't understand. Their leader lets out a deafening roar, raising his blood-red axe to rally his troops. The orc archers don't waste any time, pulling back their bows to rain death on the intruders. A volley of arrows whistles through the air, but the rookie tank manages to catch them all on his glowing shield. The rookie archer isn't just sitting back either. She lets loose a rapid-fire volley from her enchanted crossbow. "Fire arrow," she calls out, lighting up the forest as her shots streak toward the enemy. One orc takes a burning bolt right to the neck, collapsing as flames erupt from the wound. Cronus hovers over Ryoga's shoulder, impressed with the progress, but Ryoga knows this is only the start of their growth. The orc vanguard screams as they charge, a desperate wave of muscle and steel. Ryoga calmly gives the order to charge, letting his own undead army meet them head-on. An armored zombie leads the way, winding up a punch that looks like it could knock a house over. A massive blast of energy sweeps across the battlefield, tossing orcs aside like they're made of straw. Ryoga's feeling pretty good about himself. All those hours spent reading in the Library of Knowledge are finally paying off. The surviving orcs are starting to lose their nerve, trembling as they realize they're being slaughtered. But Ryoga's gaze is cold. He knows the real fight hasn't even started yet. His undead summons tear through the orc ranks with terrifying efficiency. It's a complete bloodbath, as the armored zombies crush anyone unlucky enough to be in their path. One orc manages to land a hit, but it barely leaves a scratch on the zombie's heavy plating. Still, a system alert pops up, warning Ryoga that his summon's defense has dropped after the impact. He doesn't skip a beat, casting bone armor to reinforce the zombie's protection. The bone plating instantly knits back together, coming out even thicker and stronger than before. Then he triggers flesh writhing, turning a lump of zombie meat into a living trap. The flesh surges forward like a wave of tentacles, snaring an orc before he can even swing his weapon. The monsters scream in agony as they're pulled down and crushed by the pulsating mass. The rookie tank watches from the sidelines, sweating as he realizes Ryoga is using the zombies' bodies as tactical tools. He realizes Ryoga isn't just powerful. His ability to micromanage his skills is on a completely different level. Suddenly, the ground shakes under the weight of a massive pair of feet. A shadow looms over the battlefield, dwarfing everyone as a new threat steps forward. The orc boss is finally here, his red eyes glowing with a murderous rage. He lets out a low, guttural growl as his muscles swell, and his veins begin to pulse with dark energy. The system screen flashes red. The boss has entered berserk mode and is evolving into a dangerous special variant. Instead of being worried, Ryoga just gives a predatory smile. He was getting bored and was waiting for a real challenge. The evolved orc chief is practically steaming with rage, his eyes glowing a menacing red. A system warning pops up. The boss has entered berserk mode, marking him as a high-risk special individual who's much more dangerous than before. Ryoga Chinen doesn't look worried at all. In fact, he's been waiting for this exact moment to test himself. The monster lets out a deafening roar and brings his massive axe down with everything he's got. Ryoga stands perfectly still, not even flinching as the heavy blade whistles through the air toward him. At the last second, he makes his move, activating his bone control skill. Long bone spikes, shrouded in murky black energy, streaked through the air as they lunged straight for the orc. Thud, thud, thud. A barrage of bone shards embedded themselves into the orc's body, grinding the boss's momentum to a halt. The orc's resistance finally hit its limit, and it collapsed to its knees. The monster let out a furious, blood-curdling roar as it completely lost its mind to rage. However, the sheer number of bone spikes impaling its body was too much, causing it to collapse completely. He gasps and struggles, his eyes filled with pure shock as he tries to pull the bones out of his chest. Ryoga stands calmly, keeping the pressure on even as his spirit power begins to take a hit. The beast screamed in agony, utterly helpless to escape the cage. Every time it managed to rip one bone out, Ryoga would relentlessly drive a new one back in. Ryoga walks right up to his face, telling the beast to stop being so gloomy since he's about to have plenty of company. He's feeling the strain, though. Juggling 6 different bones at once is a massive drain on his power. He needs to end this now with one clean shot straight through the heart. He focuses every bit of his remaining energy into the bone control skill, his hands glowing with dark power. A final massive bone spike drives home, silencing the orc chief for good. The boss's corpse finally collapsed onto the ground, leaving behind a massive trophy of war right in the middle of the orc camp. Ryoga exhales, looking a bit worn out from the high-stakes gamble. He wastes no time and activates Life Drain, pulling the lingering energy from the fresh corpse. The stolen vitality flows back into him, quickly topping off his spirit power reserves. He wipes a smudge of blood from his mouth, feeling the rush of victory. Seeing their leader turned into a husk, the remaining orcs decide they've seen enough. They abandon their posts and scramble for the exit, screaming for everyone to run. But Ryoga isn't about to let any of them crawl away to warn the rest of their kind. He casts writhing flesh, and green tendrils of energy snake across the ground to snag the fleeing monsters. The orcs are tripped up mid-sprint and slammed face-first into the dirt. They try to crawl away, but the magical grip is absolute as it drags them back toward the carnage. In a flash of dark power, Ryoga finishes the job, leaving the entire camp in ruins. The battle is over, and the ground is soaked in blood. All that's left of the orc chief is a shriveled corpse lying next to his discarded axe. Yuma and her party arrive on the scene, absolutely stunned by the sheer number of magic stones littering the floor. Ryoga picks up the heavy axe, a satisfied look on his face. This is the real prize. It's the blood axe, a rare item with no level restrictions and maxed-out durability. The thing is cursed, meaning the more blood it tastes, the more strength it grants the wielder. He's definitely happy with the haul. Taking down an entire village single-handedly was worth the trouble. He hands the axe over to the tank, putting Yuma and her team in charge of hauling the rest of the loot back to town. The group tells him they'll handle the magic stones while he goes off to pay his respects. Ryoga walks deeper into the woods, his footsteps the only sound in the quiet forest. He stops in front of a massive, gnarled tree that looks like it's been dead for decades. He looks up into the empty branches and tells whoever is hiding there to come out for a talk. The tree remained deathly still, showing no sign of movement against the fatting, sickly yellow light of the sunset. He lets out a long sigh, clutching a heavy bone in his hand with a grim expression. He looks up, his gaze hardening as he decides how to handle the situation, if that's how you want to play it. He swings the bone with a sharp, practice-like motion, ready to unleash his power. His eyes flared with a cold, golden light as he resorted to brute force, smashing the bone weapon against the trunk to force the hidden entity out. Suddenly, a massive eruption of dark, swirling energy bursts from the trunk, tearing into the air. A tall, shadowy figure with piercing red eyes materializes from the gloom, demanding to know who he is. Ryoga just smirks, completely unfazed by the intimidating presence. "Glad to meet you." He addresses the spirit by his full name, Magic Fighter Kashiwagi Soraku. The spirit is taken aback, the shadows around him flickering. "How do you know my name?" Ryoga explains that he remembers him as the hero who held the line against the monster wave from the north 35 years ago. A memorial monument stands as a silent reminder of the warriors who kept Japan from falling that day. Flashback, Kashiwagi is shown in his prime, a magic fighter who combined martial arts with powerful sorcery. The spirit silhouette looks somber against the setting sun. "So I didn't die for nothing." Ryoga looks away toward the horizon. "Well, not everyone's name made the history books." Kashiwaga's eyes narrow as the tension rises. "What are you getting at?" Ryoga mentions a specific name, Hakugo Naruhito, the sub-master of the Aragiri Guild. The flashback shifts to a forest engulfed in a massive, raging inferno. A younger Kashiwagi screams into his radio, desperately requesting backup for the civilians trapped in the farming district. He's facing a massive, muscular monster, while terrified people cower behind him in the smoke. He shouts Hakugo's name, pleading for support as his team's position becomes untenable. "Damn it, we can't hold out much longer. Send help fast." The response on the radio is cold and final. "Backup unavailable. We can't provide support." Kashiwagi looks down at the device, a look of grim realization crossing his face. Ryoga's voice narrates over the scene, accusing Hakugo of planning to use Kashiwaga's team as bait from the very start. While Hakugo's main force took the easy way out through the north gate, Kashiwagi was left to hold the line alone. Hakugo's voice crackles over the radio, laughing as he admits they bought enough time to slip away without a hitch. Ryoga continues. "Hakugo sent them out knowing there were civilians, gambling they wouldn't just abandon them." "Don't take it so hard." Hakugo's voice sneers from the speaker as the signal flickers. Hakugo took all the glory for himself, becoming the hero who stopped the wave while leaving the real warriors to die. "You survive, you're a hero, you die, and that's the end of the story." The radio is left in the dirt. At that very moment, the orcs pounced on the civilians, starting to tear them limb from limb. But a streak of light flashed out, blasting the orc away with a surge of purple energy like a massive cannon shell. The orc's massive frame was sent skidding across the ground. It's game over for that beast. Even in those dire moments, he rallied everyone's spirits, shouting for the others to get the civilians out of there immediately. His teammates are hesitant to leave him behind, but he doesn't give them a choice. He orders them to move, shouting his last command with everything he has left. Ryoga's voice returns to the present. "The same Hakugo who sent you to your death became a hero. And every record of you was wiped clean." Ryoga stands before the spirit. Ryoga calls it a tragedy. He died and someone else took the credit. "You can't exactly rest in peace like that, can you?" A giant, monstrous image of Kashiwaga's rage fills the sky as Ryoga suggests he'd want payback. The spirit's face is a mask of pure fury. "Enough talk, get to the point." Ryoga's smile is subtle. The spirit of Kashiwagi Soraku glows with a menacing red light, his shadowy form flickering with suppressed rage. Ryoga's yellow eye glints in the darkness as a confident smirk plays on his lips. "I'll help you get your revenge." Ryoga makes his pitch to the wandering spirit. He's going to help him get the revenge he's been waiting for. A faint blue glow emanates from Ryoga's hand as he prepares to seal the deal. He released the Dragon Guardian's body from the ring, then pointed toward the colossal dragon corpse on the ground, calling it the soul's new home. The ghost of Sora Kashiwagi stares at the massive vessel, thinking it over. His glowing red eyes flicker. He never thought revenge would be possible in his current state. Kashiwagi agrees to the contract, but he has one major condition before they start. He absolutely refuses to do anything that might harm innocent people. Ryoga cracks a smile. It's the exact same thing the hero said in their previous life. Even after death and regression, some people just never change. Ryoga gives his word and promises to uphold the condition. With the promise made, Kashiwagi officially agrees to become his undead servant. A torrent of dark, bloody energy begins to swirl around the dragon's body. A notification confirms the contract. Ownership of the earthbound spirit is now his. Ryoga remembers how things went in the original timeline when he used a skeleton knight as a vessel. That skeleton eventually evolved into a terrifying Hell Knight, but it took time. He wonders how much more potential Kashiwagi will have starting with a top-tier body from day one. The dragon corpse groans and starts to sit up. Ryoga is impressed with his own work. The newly reborn dragon man looks at his claws, asking if Ryoga planned this all along. His status window opens up, showing a massive power level and a 3-star grade. There's a special note too. This undead can actually grow stronger as the soul matures. Ryoga notices a specific trait that definitely wasn't there when the guy was a skeleton. It's the magic fighter trait, allowing him to use physical and magical skills simultaneously. He's shocked the guy's innate talent managed to carry over into the new body. Ryoga folds his arms and asks how the new hardware feels. Kashiwagi flexes his claws, admitting it's not as good as his living body, but it'll work. Ryoga notes the body is labeled incomplete, probably because it's just an imitation of a dragon. Still, it's a much better starting point than they ever had in the past. Ryoga turns to leave, telling his new partner it's time to move out. He casually calls him minion, which doesn't sit well with the former hero. Kashiwagi stops in his tracks and gives Ryoga a very annoyed look. Ryoga asks what's up, but the dragon man is already over the minion label. Ryoga offers to call him by his old name, but Kashiwagi says he's left that identity behind. He's being surprisingly difficult. Ryoga wonders if the guy's personality shifted during the rebirth. Kashiwagi wants a name that sounds cool and strikes fear into his enemies. Ryoga rattles off some legendary dragon names, but Kashiwagi finds them all too cliché or overblown. He shoots down Arachi too, and Ryoga is starting to lose his patience. He's genuinely considering punching his new 3-star summon right in the face. Suddenly, the dragon man decides the first option, Fafnir, actually sounds all right. Ryoga is already mentally exhausted from the back and forth. He just wants to get going. Fafnir suddenly panics when he realizes he's walking around completely exposed. He looks around at the wreckage of the camp, searching for something to wear. He grabs a large piece of leather and quickly wraps it around his waist. Fafnir finishes wrapping himself in some scrap leather. He feels a lot more decent now. He stands tall, ready for whatever's next. He turns to Ryoga and signals that it's time to move. Ryoga watches him with a sweat drop. He wonders if the guy was always such a handful in his past life. Back at the lab, a loud shout echoes through the night air. Something unexpected is happening inside. Rinneya Shinya is losing his mind with excitement. He can't believe the dragon corpse is actually moving. Ryoga explains he simply found a soul that fit the body perfectly. The scientist is already itching to take it apart for study. Fafnir is not a fan of the creepy vibes Rinneya is giving off. He asks Ryoga if he can just punch the guy already. Ryoga tells him to relax since Rinneya is technically a partner. The scientist calls out to Ryoga, looking for some answers. Meanwhile, the rookie party is heading back to the city to cash in their loot. Ryoga wishes them luck and tells them he'll see them later. With the dragon settled, Ryoga turns his attention back to his next project. His hand glows with a familiar necromantic energy. He starts breaking down the orc chief's corpse with his spirit power. The blue flames lick at the green skin. He wonders what kind of minion he can squeeze out of a boss-level body. Rinneya and Fafnir watch the process with intense interest. Rinneya asks what the plan is for the new project. Ryoga and Fafnir crouch over the massive orc. Ryoga shoots him a devious smirk, asking if he's really that curious about his methods. Rinneya immediately panics. He remembers the last time he helped, he almost lost his arm from all the heavy herb grinding. Even though he's terrified of the work, his scientific curiosity wins out. He starts vigorously pounding away with a mortar and pestle. He can't help but be impressed. No matter what he expects, Ryoga always finds a way to go way beyond it. Ryoga activates his flesh separation skill. He's going to strip the orc down to its bare essentials. The dark energy does the dirty work, peeling away the muscle and sinew with terrifying efficiency. The little spirit, Cronus, pops in to offer some commentary. He agrees that you can never have enough muscle on the front lines. A status window confirms the process was a huge success. The skeleton is in perfect condition, which grants a massive stat boost. Rinia hands over a vial of high-quality extract. Ryoga takes it, ready for the final step of the ritual. He drips the fluid onto the pristine white bones. The system notes that the high-quality materials will result in a much stronger summon. The ritual finishes, and the new skeleton is specialized specifically for heavy defense. Ryoga is pleased with the result. He's been needing a solid bodyguard to watch his back during combat. The skeleton's feet plant firmly on the ground as it fully manifests. It stands up, clad in heavy armor and wielding dual shields. It's a 2-star skeleton guard. Ryoga gives it its first order. Its only job is to protect him whenever he's busy using life drain on enemies. He gives the skull a friendly pat. The skeleton chatters its teeth, seemingly happy to have a purpose. Rinia asks why he went with a skeleton this time instead of another zombie. Ryoga explains that bones are lighter and easier to maintain. Plus, unlike zombies that rot away, Ryoga can use his spirit power to mold the bones into exactly what he needs. He emphasizes the need for a bodyguard. Close-range skills leave him way too exposed, so he needs a dedicated tank. Ryoga starts to walk away, mentioning he has a boring errand to take care of. He tells Rinia to look after the lab while he's gone. Rinia is confused. It's the middle of the night. Where could he possibly be going? Ryoga casually mentions he's heading to the Pantheon. He leveled up, and the higher-ups want to grant him a holy spell. The news hits Rinia like a ton of bricks. He can't believe what he's hearing. He chases after Ryoga, screaming for an explanation. The idea of a necromancer getting a holy spell is completely insane. He finally realizes the truth and lets out a panicked shout. Ryoga, the man raising the dead, was actually a priest this whole time. Ryoga tells Rinia Shinya that they are heading to the Pantheon. Having recently leveled up, he received a notification to come and claim a new divine spell. Rinia Shinya is completely stunned, his jaw dropping as he tries to process what he just heard. He starts shouting, demanding to know what Ryoga means by a divine spell. He's panicking so hard he can barely get the words out. Behind Ryoga, a veiled skeleton appears in a golden light as he drops the bomb. He reveals that his actual class is a priest, leaving the lab assistant speechless. Ryoga stays deadpan, claiming he's actually a pretty devout believer. Cronus floats nearby, watching the lie with a judgmental look. Rinia grabs his head and screams, refusing to believe it. He knows there's no way the world has turned upside down enough for Ryoga to be holy. Ryoga quickly pivots back to business, asking if the patent for the intermediate healing potion is finished. Rinia snaps out of his shock, confirming they can start the review process soon. He admits that Ryoga really does work fast. Ryoga doesn't want to waste time because more rivals will pop up the longer they wait. He's not the type to put things off when profit is on the line. Rinia ponders the situation, nodding that the only problem is advertising since the next big exhibition is a year away. Ryoga tells him to just hand over a few of those potions. He plans to advertise them himself if he gets even the slightest chance. Rinia reaches back into the storage cabinets and pulls out a small bottle filled with a glowing red liquid. Ryoga holds the potion up, a greedy smile crossing his face. He's already convinced that if this plan succeeds, they're going to make an absolute fortune. In his mind, money is the only thing that really makes the world go round. He's practically drowning in gold coins and bills in his own imagination. Rinia watches him with a look of pure terror, wondering if any real priest could look that sinister. He's starting to seriously doubt Ryoga's devout claim. The scene shifts to the Pantheon, a massive black tower that appeared out of nowhere after the Great Cataclysm. It reaches high into the night sky under a full moon. Ryoga walks through the crowded market at the base of the tower. He looks at all the vendors and calls the whole place worldly and shallow. He knows the constellations here are just demanding offerings from their followers. He walks right through the gate, unimpressed by the spectacle. Entering the temple, he He notices all the valuable relics just lying on the ground. He can't sense any actual divine presence from any of them. He lets out a heavy sigh, already feeling the weight of the trip. He looks at the endless spiral of stairs and realizes there are no elevators or escalators in the entire building. He starts the long climb, cursing the lack of modern convenience. It's the path to the gods, consisting of 108 grueling steps. He looks up at the massive tower, realizing they still have a very long way to go. Sweat pours down his face as he huffs and puffs his way up. He figures he won't get struck by lightning just for complaining a little bit about the exercise. Cronus floats alongside him effortlessly, asking how much further he can go. He tells Ryoga they're only about halfway there. Ryoga stops, his shadow stretching out behind him in the moonlight. The realization that they've only done half the work hits him like a ton of bricks. He mutters that if he goes through all this trouble and gets nothing out of it, there's going to be hell to pay. His boots finally hit the top step as they reach the summit of the tower. They step into a massive celestial hall where the ceiling is a window to the stars. The architecture is grand, filled with glowing constellations. Ryoga stands in the center, waiting for the system to acknowledge him. The messages start flashing in, and the stars aren't welcoming. The Wealthy One and the Lord of Abydos are openly showing their disgust at his presence. Cronus finds the whole thing hilarious, laughing at the petty reactions of the other gods. Ryoga just tells the little spirit to shut up for a second. The Titan King decides it's his turn to step up. He glows with a blue light, ready to show off his own power. His massive, celestial form begins to manifest, radiating energy into the hall. He reaches out a finger to touch the starlight, officially registering himself in the pantheon. The system names him the Giant of the Defiant Heavens. Ryoga gets a notification that he's acquired 2 new divine spells. The first is Unholy Blessing, which strengthens yin energy to boost a target's stats. It's a perfect match for his necromancy. The second is Wedge of Retribution, a spell that stores damage from an opponent and releases it all at once in a counterattack. Cronus towers over him, boasting about the incredible power he just bestowed. Ryoga has to admit that this haul is actually pretty good. The Titan King laughs loudly, reveling in his own greatness. He's feeling himself now that he's an official constellation. But then a cold message from the system pops up. It informs them that the Giant of the Defiant Heavens lacks the divinity of a true constellation. The system explains that their starlight is too weak to attract any followers. To continue shining, they need to gain more achievements and praise. Ryoga points a finger and laughs at the garbage system, while Cronus sulks in the background. His ego is completely crushed by the notification. Ryoga walks away from the Pantheon Tower, a small grin on his face. He's satisfied because, despite all the trash talk from the system, there's no denying he's gotten significantly stronger. He merges into the busy night streets of the city, looking like just another hunter among the crowds. He walks with his hands tucked into his jacket pockets, moving through the downtown district with a calm, focused air. His pace is interrupted when a voice calls out to him, demanding to know why a guy like him is walking out of the Pantheon. A tall, bulky man with short blonde hair and freckles blocks the sidewalk. This is Sadek Shaidru, and he looms over Ryoga with a smug, mocking expression. Ryoga looks up with a completely blank face, honestly unable to place where he's seen this man before. Sadek is visibly annoyed at being forgotten. He reminds Ryoga about their time back at the orphanage, claiming he was the one who took care of him. The name finally rings a bell. This is the piece of trash who spent his time extorting other kids. Ryoga tells him to stop acting like they were ever friends. Ryoga's mind flashes back to their childhood. A smaller, younger version of him is being pinned against a wall by a much larger Sadek. Young Sadek is red-faced and screaming, accusing Ryoga of being a snitch and reporting him to the director. The flashback shows that Ryoga didn't just take the bullying. He retaliated with a sharp, heavy punch that landed squarely on Sadek's nose, sending him reeling. Back in the present, Ryoga smirks and asks if that broken nose ever actually healed properly. Sadek's face twists into a snarl as he struggles to contain his rage. Sadek tries to keep his composure, rubbing his forehead as if Ryoga's words are just a minor nuisance. He shifts his jacket to show off a silver pin on his chest, a cocky grin returning to his lips. It's the emblem of the Aragiri Guild, a high-ranking group that commands respect in the hunter world. Sadek scoffs, saying that if Ryoga is only just visiting the Pantheon, he must still be a bottom feeder. He warns him that things are going to be very different from the orphanage days. Ryoga remains completely unimpressed by the badge or the threats. He looks Sadek in the eye and tells him that, from where he's standing, absolutely nothing has changed. That comment is the final straw, and Sadek's expression turns genuinely murderous. He tells Ryoga not to get cocky and pulls his fist back to strike. But a hand suddenly reaches out and catches Sadek's wrist, stopping the punch dead in its tracks. It's Reigo Jamin, the captain of the Aragiri Guild's 7th attack squad. He tells them to stop, reminding his subordinate that they're in the middle of a public street. Sadek tries to defend himself to his captain, but he's clearly frustrated by the interruption. The squad captain, Reigo Jamin, senses the tension and suggests they move to a more official location for a duel. He looks at Ryoga with a hint of genuine interest. Jamin thinks to himself that Ryoga is a cheeky brat for picking a fight even while knowing their guild affiliation. Sadek is surprised that Ryoga actually wants to go through with it. Jamin asks if the two of them really have a history and suggests they let their fists settle the score in the gym. Sadek erupts into a fit of mocking laughter. He thinks it's hilarious that a rookie hunter who just started out actually thinks he can take on a veteran. Ryoga doesn't back down, calmly stating that they should just do it. Sadek stops laughing, looking a bit confused by the lack of fear in Ryoga's eyes. Ryoga leans in with a dark, confident smirk, asking the big man if he's starting to get scared. Sadek's teeth are bared in a snarl, and he growls that Ryoga won't be able to take back his words once the match begins. The scene shifts to a gymnasium affiliated with the Aragiri Guild, a large, modern facility for sanctioned duels. The two men take their places in the center of the arena, standing on a large circular logo under the bright overhead lights. Ryoga stands next to a massive blue-scaled dragonoid. He informs Sadek that because he's a priest, he won't be fighting personally. Instead, he'll be using his proxy, Fafnir. Sadek laughs, assuming Ryoga just got lucky with a summon skill. He starts activating his equipment, including a mana necklace and a gold ring to boost his combat stats. He glares at the beast, convinced that a single summon won't be enough to save a weak priest from a real fighter. The floor of the gym begins to glow with a brilliant white light as the combat system powers up. Sadek's eyes wide with a manic grin as the system starts measuring the stats and HP of both participants. Ryoga remains silent as a protective barrier deploys around the arena, designed to keep the spectators safe from any stray attacks. A system notification appears in the air, officially declaring the start of the match. The duel arena activates, a bright geometric seal burning into the floor between Ryoga and his opponent. Sadek Shaidru flashes a cocky, toothy grin as the system prepares to measure their stats. Ryoga Chinen remains stone-faced, while the system confirms that a protective barrier will activate if the fight turns lethal. Sadek leans on his spear, taunting Ryoga and asking if he's so terrified he's about to wet himself. Ryoga just digs a finger into his ear, completely unfazed by the trash talk. The massive talons of the Dragonoid proxy step firmly onto the glowing arena floor. The Dragonoid rolls his shoulders and clenches his fists, ready to see what his new draconic body can really do. Ryoga watches from the sidelines, telling his summon there's no reason to hold anything back against members of the Aragiri Guild. Ryoga adds a quick condition. He wants to test a few things, so the match shouldn't end with a single hit. The Dragonoid looks a bit disappointed, nodding that keeping his strength in check is actually the hardest part. Sadek loses his patience and charges forward, shouting Ryoga's name as he levels his spear for a thrust. He lunges with full force, his weapon trailing a streak of white light through the air. The Dragonoid effortlessly leaps over the strike, the heavy spear tip slamming into the ground where he stood just a second ago. Sadek's eyes widen in confusion as the summon maneuvers around him with impossible speed. Before the blonde hunter can even reset his stance, the Dragonoid has already circled behind him. Sadek swings wildly, desperately bringing up a past fight where he claimed to have made Ryoga cry. Up in the stands, Reigo Jamin watches with a small, calculating smile, nodding that Satake's reactions are sharper than they were in practice. Satake scoffs at the summon's movement, convinced that such a slow attack could never land on him. A massive clawed hand sweeps through the air with a sudden blur of motion. The Dragonoid catches the shaft of the spear mid-thrust, the impact sending out a shockwave that rattles Satake's bones. Satake pulls with all his might, but the spear won't budge an inch from the summon's iron grip. The creature looms over him, calling the attack pathetic and mocking the hunter for not thinking about his next move. It growls that if this were a real life-or-death battle, the fight would already be over. The Dragonoid realizes he might have exerted a bit too much pressure, remembering Ryoga's order to hold back. Purple energy begins to crackle around the Dragonoid's free hand as he prepares a heavy strike. He slams his palm directly into Satake, the force of the blow throwing the hunter's head back and shattering his composure. Satake lets out a ragged, agonizing scream as the sheer weight of the monster's power hits him. He collapses to his knees on the arena floor, his spear forgotten as Ryoga walks up to survey the damage. Ryoga gives him a cold, mocking compliment, nodding that at least he only screamed for a moment this time. Satake glares up at him, panting heavily and clutching his shoulder while cursing Ryoga under his breath. Dragonoid stepped in to block the path, stopping that muscle-bound, meat shield from charging toward his master. He was more than ready to feed this blonde giant a world of hurt if he kept acting so aggressive. The blonde guy charged forward with a face full of saltiness, unable to accept that he was being totally outclassed by a mere summon. The summon's heavy foot comes crashing down toward the floor with the force of a falling boulder. The impact craters the arena, sending chunks of stone flying as Satake is pinned under the Dragonoid's overwhelming mass. Satake tries to scramble away through the dust, his face twisted in a mixture of pain and disbelief. The Dragonoid stares him down with a predatory grin, warning him that using the same move twice just makes it easier to counter. He swings a low, heavy kick that connects squarely with Satake's shin. A sickening crack echoes through the gym as the bone snaps, sending Satake into a fresh fit of screaming. The Dragonoid stands tall over his broken opponent, declaring that the match is finally over. He raises a massive hand for one final blow, the air shimmering with the threat of more violence. Tears of pure terror stream down Satake's face as he realizes he's completely at the mercy of the beast. He desperately shrieks for the Dragonoid to stop, cowering as the shadow of the final strike looms over him. Reigo Jamin stands there, breathless and sweating, his eyes wide as he looks at the aftermath of the lopsided fight. Ryoga Chinen just gives a satisfied smirk, nodding to himself that the guild captain stepped in exactly when he expected. The overhead system officially marks the end of the match between the Dragonoid and the Aragiri bully. Reigo rushes to the side of Satake Shidru, who is clutching his mangled leg in agony while the captain promises to get a priest immediately. Ryoga points a thumb at his own chest, coolly informing the panicked captain that there's already a priest standing right in front of him. Reigo isn't convinced, snapping back that a basic one-star healing spell won't do anything for a bone that's been completely shattered. The captain stares Ryoga down, demanding to know how he plans to fix a wound that's severe with such low-rank magic. Instead of an incantation, Ryoga reaches into his jacket and pulls out a bottle filled with a vibrant red liquid. Reigo's jaw drops at the sight of the mid-grade potion, knowing they cost a fortune, but Ryoga just asks if he's behind on the news of their mass production. Even while broken on the ground, Satake refuses to accept what he calls charity from the winner, telling Ryoga to take his potion and get lost. Ryoga ignores the prideful shouting, uncorking the bottle and telling the blonde hunter to just sit still and accept the help. As he tilts the bottle over the wound, Ryoga thinks about how lucky he is to have found such a perfect, public test subject to market his product. The red liquid splashes over the torn skin and exposed bone, immediately starting to bubble and glow with magical energy. Reigo watches in utter disbelief as the mangled limb knits itself back together, the shattered bone reconnecting perfectly in seconds. The captain's expression shifts from shock to a dark, intense greed as he realizes the sheer value of a potion that powerful. Ryoga catches the look and lets out a small, knowing grin. He has the man exactly where he wants him. Reigo leans in close, his voice hushed and urgent as he asks where Ryoga could have possibly bought a mass-produced supply of those potions. The bait has been swallowed whole, and Ryoga can barely contain his amusement as his plan continues to fall into place. Ryoga notes that a captain of the Aragiri Guild should be around a 3-star rank, a fact that Reigo cautiously confirms. He offers the captain a deal. If Reigo can beat him in a duel, Ryoga will reveal exactly where the healing potions came from. Reigo realizes Ryoga's healing demonstration was just a lure, but the prize is far too valuable to pass up, regardless of the risk. Ryoga stretches his neck, admitting that the last match was a bit too short, and he's looking for a more serious challenge this time. The two take their positions in the center of the arena, with Fafnir standing ready to protect his master once again. The match officially begins, and Reigo doesn't waste a heartbeat, lunging forward with a burst of speed that leaves a trail of light behind him. The captain unleashes his full swordsmanship, his blade becoming a blur of orange and red as he launches a flurry of sharp attacks. Reigo acknowledges that Fafnir was fast enough to catch Sadek's spear, but he's confident his own speed is on a completely different level. He rains down dozens of shallow cuts, banking on the fact that Fafnir's massive dragonoid frame will eventually reach its limit of reaction speed. A warning flashes across the system interface as the summon's defense begins to drop under the constant pressure of the captain's blade. Reigo continues to dance around the dragonoid, leaping off a nearby wall to keep up his relentless high-speed assault. Ryoga watches with his arms crossed, nodding that the human soul's old fast-attack style is a poor fit for the heavy, close-range build of his new dragon body. Fafnir stands his ground, his claws out as he tries to keep track of the captain's dizzying movements. This struggle is exactly what Ryoga wanted, having used the potion specifically to provoke a high-rank opponent like Jamin into a fight. Fafnir realizes he needs to feel the pressure of an opponent he can't easily beat if he ever wants to master this heavy, draconic frame. Ryoga smiles at the thought, impressed by the warrior spirit of the hero he recruited to be his right-hand man. Deciding he's seen enough of Fafnir struggling on his own, Ryoga reaches out a hand to activate a dark blessing. Tendrils of black smoke erupt from the floor, swirling around the dragonoid's massive limbs and infusing him with a new, dark power. Ryoga declares that he can't just stand by and watch his summon do all the work, casting his impure blessing to tip the scales. The system confirms the activation of the holy spell, boosting every one of Fafnir's stats by 20%. Reigo freezes as he feels the sudden, explosive increase in the dragonoid's presence, unable to believe a holy spell could provide such a massive buff. Ryoga isn't finished yet, pulling more dark energy into his palm as he prepares to layer on the next part of his trap. Reigo suddenly staggers, his knees buckling as a crushing weight settles over his shoulders, making his very body feel like lead. While his summon grows stronger, the captain's stats are drained away by 10%, perfectly demonstrating the dual nature of Ryoga's dark magic. Behind Reigo Jamin, the terrifying presence of Ryoga, his dragonoid, and a towering celestial entity looms like a nightmare. The captain can only stare in shock, wondering how a supposedly low-rank hunter can radiate such overwhelming power. The miniature spirit of Cronus floats proudly beside Ryoga, boasting about the incredible divine gift he just bestowed on the young man. Ryoga just offers a faint, mocking smile, describing the Titan King's contribution as not bad for a low-tier god. Outraged by the insult, Cronus shrieks and flails in Ryoga's grip, but the hunter doesn't even look at him, telling the god to be quiet during the fight. Ryoga's expression turns cold and calculating as he turns his attention back to the arena, already preparing to stack his next spell. A new system window appears, announcing the activation of Wedge of Retribution, a cruel spell that stores up every bit of damage the dragonoid takes. Fafnir's blue-scaled body is instantly wrapped in thick, black, thorny vines that pulse with malevolent energy. Seeing his master's brutal efficiency, Cronus folds his arms and tells Ryoga to do as he pleases with the remaining power. A massive, jagged-toothed shadow rises behind the group as Cronus acknowledges that Ryoga has given the perfect command for the slaughter to follow. Rhaego and his shadows strike Fafnir from all sides, their blades sparking against the dragonoid's hide as the system continuously counts up points for the stored retribution. The captain grits his teeth, pushing through the stat reduction debuff and convincing himself that an elite Aragiri hunter can easily adapt to such tricks. He's stunned to find that his attacks barely slow the creature down, watching in disbelief as the one-star summon keeps moving forward through a hail of strikes. Fafnir takes a heavy blow to his armored arm, the system warning that his defense is dropping while simultaneously collecting more energy for the retribution strike. Ryoga's voice echoes in the dragonoid's mind, telling the human soul within to stop fighting like a mortal and embrace the tireless nature of his new undead form. Deep gashes open up on Fafnir's torso, but no blood flows, only wisps of dark magical essence leaking into the air. Following Ryoga's command to stop dodging and start enduring, the dragonoid lunges through the captain's guard, forcing the combat into a brutal, close-range brawl. Fafnir's eyes glow with a fierce blue light as he pulls back a fist that is now heavy with the weight of all the damage he has absorbed. He unleashes a punishing strike right into Rhaego's chest, utilizing the Kennek combat art to start a devastating 10-hit combo. The dragonoid's fists become a blur of blue and black as he pummels the captain, each strike carrying more weight than the last. The final blow of the sequence connects with a sickening thud, sending Rhaego tumbling backward across the arena floor as he coughs up a spray of blood. Rhaego collapses onto the ground, his health bar plummeting into the danger zone as he realizes he was completely wrong about the summon's rank. Panting and clutching his chest, the captain realizes with mounting terror that a single hit more like that will end the fight and his life. Rhaego's eye narrows, his pride as a 3-star hunter of the Aragiri Guild refusing to let him accept defeat at the hands of a rookie. He ignores his injuries and launches himself into a desperate sprint, deciding to bypass the dragonoid and strike directly at the summoner he believes is vulnerable. The 3-star hunter tries to close the gap, but Fafnir stands like an immovable fortress in his path. He's desperate to get a hit on the master, thinking that's his only way out of this mess. Ryoga Chinan remains perfectly calm, his eyes tracking his opponent's every move with a cold, detached precision. He doesn't need to move an inch when he has a dragonoid as his shield. Captain Rhaego lunges forward, pouring all his energy into a high-speed piercing attack. It's a textbook move from a veteran, meant to end the fight in a single, decisive stroke. But Ryoga doesn't even flinch as the blade whistles past his shoulder, completely unfazed by the sudden burst of aggression. He knows exactly where the blade is going before it even leaves the scabbard. He predicted the entire sequence before it even started. For a regressor like him, these 3-star tactics are incredibly easy to read. Ryoga makes a subtle gesture, triggering a skill that's been lying in wait. It's time to show this guild member what happens when you underestimate a 1-star priest. Fafnir unleashes Wedge of Retribution, and the resulting shockwave hits with the force of a tidal wave. Captain Rhaego is sent flying back, his posture and his pride completely shattered. The dust settles to reveal the captain lying motionless on the cracked floor, defeated. A system notification confirms his HP has hit 0, bringing a decisive end to the match. News of the humiliating defeat travels quickly to the towering luxury headquarters of the Aragiri Guild. Inside a pristine office overlooking the city, the atmosphere is chillingly tense as the report is delivered to the top brass. This office belongs to Hakuho Naruhide, a sharp-featured middle-aged corporate executive and the guild's ruthless submaster. As a 7-star hunter, he carries an aura of absolute authority. Hakuho stares at the data, stunned that a rookie could somehow mass-produce mid-grade potions. He's not interested in the loss as much as he is in this potential goldmine. Captain Rhaego stands before him, looking pathetic with his face covered in bandages and his head bowed low in shame. He knows better than anyone how badly he messed up. Hakuho leans back, his gaze sharp and cold as he questions whether the potion's performance was actually verified in person. He needs to know if the rumors are true before making his next move. The captain confirms the terrifying reality. A single vial healed his fractured bones instantly. a feat usually reserved for the rarest dungeon drops. He can barely meet the submaster's eyes, knowing that his failure has dragged the guild's prestigious name through the dirt. Every second of silence feels like a death sentence. He offers a formal apology, promising to take full responsibility for the embarrassment he's brought upon the organization. He's ready to accept whatever punishment Hakuho deems fit. But Hakuho isn't in the mood for excuses. He's disgusted that the Aragiri name is being mocked because a seasoned veteran lost to a nobody. The guild's reputation is everything in this business. Captain Reigo stands there in silence, feeling the heavy weight of the submaster's cold, mounting fury. The air in the room feels thick with pressure as Hakuho rants about the disgrace. Hakuho's expression turns menacing as he points out the sheer impossibility of the situation. A 3-star losing to an unknown 1-star is a stain that won't wash off easily. He leans in close, his eyes glowing with a dark intensity that makes the captain tremble in his boots. There's no room for failure in a world where power is the only currency. With a cold dismissal, Hakuho tells the man to get out of his sight, clearly done with his incompetence for the day. The captain bows deeply and retreats as fast as his bruised legs will carry him. Immediately, Hakuho orders his secretary to demote the captain to a regular member and to track down the source of those potions at any cost. He's already planning how to seize control of the supply chain. Hakuho turns back to the monitor, replaying the footage of the fight to analyze how a summon could be this overwhelming. He's looking for any hint of a cheat or a hidden skill. He watches Ryoga Chinan's stoic face on the screen, convinced that a 1-star hunter shouldn't be capable of such a flawless victory. The math just doesn't add up. He suspects that Ryoga might be hiding a divine beast-class summon under the guise of being a lowly priest. It's the only explanation for that level of raw, destructive power. Regardless of what the secret is, Hakuho wants a full investigation launched into Ryoga's background immediately. He's not going to let a wild card like this operate without being under his thumb. Meanwhile, Ryoga is back at the gym, casually stretching while he waits for the big guilds to take the bait. He's actually looking forward to seeing how they react to his little demonstration. Fafnir stands nearby with his arms crossed, probably wondering why his master is suddenly acting so motivated. The Dragonoid is always ready for a fight, but he's skeptical of the sudden discipline. Ryoga mentions that since Fafnir is a magic fighter, he'd be the perfect instructor to help him sharpen his weapon skills. He knows his mental game is top tier, but his body needs to catch up to the legends. Fafnir looks skeptical as he flips through a book, questioning why his master has suddenly developed an interest in spears of all things. He'd rather just smash things himself. A vision of the hulking warrior appeared, a stark reminder of the peak physical condition Ryoga needed to reach if he hoped to survive the coming chaos. He wasn't training for sport, he was training for survival. In a bit of a comedic moment, Ryoga complains about how annoying it is that enemies always target the weak link first. He's tired of being seen as the easy mark on the battlefield. Fafnir just laughs and tells him to drink more protein and actually train if he wants to stop being everyone's favorite target. It's the simple law of the jungle, even in a world of hunters. Ryoga's eyes flare with a determined blue light. He knows that while his tactical mind is elite, his level 1 body is a serious bottleneck. He needs to close that gap before the real threats arrive. Suddenly, Fafnir's left arm jerks up on its own, catching the Dragonoid completely off guard. It's almost like his body is reacting to Ryoga's intense focus and latent energy. A sharp bonk echoes through the room as Fafnir accidentally whacks himself in the head while trying to get a handle on the practice spear. Even a Dragonoid has his clumsy moments. Well, that's one way to kick off a training session. Fafnir agrees to teach him, nodding that for a weakling, Ryoga is surprisingly fast at picking up new skills. The real work begins now. The Dragonoid tosses a heavy tome toward Ryoga, telling him he'd better memorize every single detail if he doesn't want another headache. It's a trial-by-fire approach to learning. Ryoga catches the book with a steady hand, his gaze fixed on the cover as he prepares for the grueling work ahead. He's ready to turn himself into a weapon. It's a skill book for the Verdian basic spear technique, a foundational style with massive potential for growth. Even a child could learn it, but Ryoga intends to master every nuance. Mastering this is just the first step. Eventually, it'll lead to the legendary Death Spiral, a skill famously used by one of the world's most elite spear masters. The path to the top is long, but Ryoga is already moving. A vision of the legendary spear master gives a thumbs up, representing the years of dedication normally required to master the techniques Ryoga is about to download. Ryoga smirks as he holds the skill book. For a regressor like him, the usual rules of time and practice are just another hurdle to bypass. He activates the Verdian basic spear technique, watching as the glowing energy of the skill data flows directly into his hand and mind. The installation is instant, unlocking 6 distinct combat forms that range from simple thrusts to complex rotational defenses. Ryoga thinks it all seems pretty straightforward. Fafnir slams his massive spear into the floor with a deafening crash, eager to show his master that theory is nothing without a bit of pain. Ryoga braces himself, the sheer power of the shockwave serving as a wake-up call for the brutal training session that's about to begin. The Dragonoid leaps into the air and spins his weapon with terrifying speed, reminding Ryoga that body techniques are only learned through direct experience. Another massive strike shatters the ground, forcing Ryoga to realize that his summon isn't planning on holding back even a little bit. Fafnir looms through the dust with a grin, holding his spear steady as he commands his master to begin the practical training. A sudden thrust creates another massive explosion of mana and stone, leaving no doubt that this is going to be a grueling lesson. The summoner's protector resets his stance, his spear looking like a natural extension of his massive blue-scaled frame. He settles into a low combat stance, his presence alone filling the arena with a heavy, suffocating pressure that forces Ryoga to stay sharp. The spearhead slams into the floor inches from Ryoga's feet, sending shards of stone flying in every direction as he barely manages to dodge. Fafnir scolds him mid-swing, pointing out that constant dodging won't help him master the weapon. He needs to learn how to stand his ground. Ryoga stays light on his feet, his eyes locked on the moving weapon as he narrowly avoids another lethal flurry of strikes. This is taking way too long for someone who just learned the skill. In a rare moment of levity, Ryoga wonders if Fafnir is just holding a grudge for earlier, but the Dragonoid insists this beatdown is purely educational. The Dragonoid lunges forward again, reminding his master that in a real fight, enemies won't care how recently he learned a skill. They'll just kill him. Ryoga grips his practice staff tight, his expression hardening as he prepares to transition from defensive dodging to actively blocking. Fafnir's weapon is a blur of blue and silver, as he tests Ryoga's reflexes with a series of high-speed thrusts across the arena. "Bring it on," Ryoga shouts, finally finding his rhythm and swinging his staff to intercept the next blow. He's done running. He activates the third form, rotational defense, spinning his weapon into a defensive barrier that hums with energy. The two weapons collide with a shower of sparks, and for the first time, Ryoga successfully halts the Dragonoid's advance. He finally got the timing right. He holds the block, his muscles straining against Fafnir's overwhelming strength while he looks for a gap to launch a counterattack. The sound of wood and metal grinding together echoes through the hall as both warriors pour their energy into the clash. Ryoga's determination is finally showing. But Fafnir is faster than he looks, shifting his weight and landing a brutal follow-up blow right to Ryoga's chest. The impact is enough to crack the floor beneath them. The strike sends the wind out of Ryoga's lungs, leaving him gasping for air as he struggles to maintain his footing. He didn't even see the second hit coming. He collapses to his knees, clutching his chest while his vision swims from the intensity of the blow. The gap between them is still massive. Fafnir stands over him with a stern expression, reminding him that a single successful block doesn't mean the battle is over. A real warrior never lets his guard down. Ryoga coughs, frustrated that his perfect defense was so easily dismantled. He thought he had the timing down, but he was only focusing on the first move. The draconic mentor explains that while he stopped the first strike, he left himself completely open for the second one. Combat is a constant flow, not a series of individual moves. Ryoga yells that the strength gap is just too wide, but Fafnir reveals he's been suppressing his power to match his master's level. This is purely a skill issue. Pushed to his limit, Ryoga's competitive fire ignites. He tells the Dragonoid he's going all out from now on, no matter how much it hurts. He activates Life Drain, not to heal, but to pump absorbed energy into his muscles and artificially boost his physical stats. His body starts to glow with a menacing blue aura. Empowered by the absorbed mana, he charges forward and executes the fourth form, a devastating hilt strike aimed right at Fafnir's guard. The collision shatters the air around them, Ryoga's boosted strength finally allowing him to challenge the summon's raw power. The impact shatters the training mats. He tries to press the advantage with a counterattack, but Fafnir's gaze remains focused, sensing another opening in the master's technique. Ryoga is still thinking too far ahead. The Dragonoid's eyes lock onto his target, his predator instincts taking over as he prepares a finishing blow that Ryoga won't be able to dodge. A split second later, Ryoga is flat on his back again, staring at the ceiling and wondering where his defense failed this time. The gap is still there. Fafnir looms over him once more, critiquing the failed defense and pointing out that he focused too much on the counter and not enough on the initial block. Despite the pain, Ryoga forces himself back up, the life drain aura still flickering as he prepares for the next round. He's not giving up until he gets it right. Fafnir lunges with a series of blindingly fast strikes, demanding that his master get the timing right this time. He's being a brutal but effective teacher. Ryoga's eyes widen as the spearhead comes barreling toward him, forcing his body to react faster than it ever has before. He has to trust his new instincts. The brutal training session ends in a final, high-impact clash of spears that leaves the arena floor pulverized and smoking. Ryoga and Fafnir stand at the center of the destruction, their power level finally beginning to sink. Night descends upon the city, where the neon glow of street signs illuminates the busy sidewalks outside the local eateries. Life continues as normal for the civilians, unaware of the battles being fought in the shadows. Thick slabs of pork belly sizzle on a circular charcoal grill, the fat dripping onto the coals and sending up clouds of savory steam. It's a classic hunter's meal, meant to restore energy after a long day of dungeon crawling. Rookie Tank leans forward over the table, his eyes nearly popping out of his head as he stares at his friend's face. He looks genuinely disturbed by the state Ryoga is in. Ryoga sits with a perfectly calm expression, despite the massive purple bruise covering his eye and the swelling on his cheek. His messy black hair barely hides the damage Fafnir inflicted during their education. "A lot happened," Ryoga says dismissively, picking up his chopsticks as if his face isn't a road map of trauma. Rookie Tank can only offer a stunned, sweating response to the non-explanation. As Ryoga eats, his summoner ring pulses with a faint, mocking blue light. Fafnir's voice echoes in his mind, praising the master for surviving the training without fainting. Ryoga grips his chopsticks with a dark, determined smirk that doesn't quite match his casual surroundings. He suspects Fafnir might have enjoyed the legal opportunity to beat him into the dirt. Inside the pocket dimension of the ring, a chibi version of Fafnir is lounging on a beach chair under a tropical umbrella. The Dragonoid is clearly enjoying his downtime, while his master suffers the physical consequences of their lesson. Ryoga keeps his focus on the food, his mind already racing ahead to his next objective. He knows that the path to power requires more than just surviving a few bruises. He realizes that his life drain skill is far more versatile than he initially thought. Using it to temporarily boost his stats is the key to mastering high-level martial arts in this life. He lifts a piece of meat from the grill, watching the steam rise in the dim light of the restaurant. Relying on simple enhancements won't be enough if he wants to stay ahead of the major guilds. A shadow falls over Ryoga's face as his expression turns predatory and cold. He is confident that with his regressor knowledge and new skills, he will surpass the strength he had in his previous life. Rookie Tank is visibly unnerved by the terrifying look on Ryoga's face, sweating as he tries to keep the mood light. He's starting to realize just how dangerous his quiet companion can be. The mood shifts as Rookie Tank holds up a bank passbook, laughing with pure joy at the 15 million deposit. It's an incredible sum of money for only 3 days of work, and he's eager for more. Ryoga leans back, his bruised face still stoic as he asks if there's been any significant news in the hunter circles. He needs information on the world's current state to plan his next move. Rookie Tank mentions that Haibara has been monitoring HunterNet, the exclusive site for professional hunters. They've heard rumors about mysterious deaths in Kamakura and strange occurrences elsewhere. They go over the list of active gates, including the Kagoshima Gate and a series of murders targeting hunters. None of these seem like the fast track to power that Ryoga is searching for. Ryoga eats slowly, mentally cross-referencing every name and location with his memories of the future. He was hopping for something minor he could exploit before the big guilds caught on. Rookie Tank mentions one more location, the Forgotten Temple Gate located in Wakayama. It's a name that immediately catches Ryoga's full attention. Ryoga pauses, his eyes widening slightly as he realizes the timeline is aligning. He's shocked that a place with such high-value potential remains uncleared this late in the game. Rookie Tank explains that the Horizon Guild has struggled with it for a year, and it's now in a critical state. He's unusually serious as he warns that a mana break is imminent. A diagram illustrates a static gate, a stable portal where hunters can easily thin out the monsters that periodically spawn. These are predictable and profitable for the guilds in charge. In contrast, a fluid gate like the Forgotten Temple is a nightmare where mana density hits 100%. When it overflows, monsters flood into the real world in a catastrophic break. Ryoga stares at his half-empty plate, his mind already calculating the risks of entering a gate on the verge of a break. For others, it's a death trap, but for him, it's a goldmine. Rookie Tank adds that the Horizon Guild has officially lifted all entry restrictions due to the emergency. This means independent hunters like Ryoga can now enter without a license from the ruling guild. They discuss the heavy hitters moving in, specifically the second-ranked Phoenix Guild and the third-ranked Daybreak Guild. These powerhouses are sensing the same opportunity Ryoga is. Ryoga remembers that in the original timeline, the Phoenix Guild secured the legendary dragon scale armor from this temple. It was an epic-grade artifact that made them nearly invincible for years. A menacing, satisfied grin spreads across Ryoga's face as the pieces of his plan finally fall into place. He isn't going to let the big guilds take the prize this time. Ryoga realizes that acquiring the dragon scale armor alongside his new spear skills would be the perfect foundation for his revenge. He looks like a villain plotting his next heist. Ryoga stands up suddenly, slamming his hands on the table and issuing a series of rapid commands. He tells Rookie Tank to contact the rest of the team and prepare for an overnight camp at the gate. They're leaving tomorrow. A pair of massive dragon statues frame a swirling blue portal, the entrance to the Forgotten Temple. This fluid gate is a large dungeon with a staggering mana density of 93%. Outside, a campsite has sprung up as hunters from all over gather to raid the shrine. The Rookie Tank is impressed by the crowd, noting how many people have shown up since the restrictions were lifted. He asks Ryoga Chinen if they should pitch a tent of their own while they wait. Ryoga says they'll be spending their time inside the gate, but the rookie archer is worried their 5 days of rations won't be enough. Ryoga isn't bothered. He's confident he can clear the entire place within those 5 days. Suddenly, the Rookie Tank points toward the crowd, telling the others to check out a certain hunter. It's Asaka Mayuri, the woman destined to become Phoenix's next sword saint. Ryoga recognizes her immediately, knowing she was the one who originally obtained the dragon scale armor here. In his past life, she was a legendary genius, but her career ended in tragedy during a gate raid. The Rookie Tank nudges him again, pointing out another powerhouse in the group. Over there is Guda Gaishin, a massive martial artist who's participating from the Daybreak Guild. In the future, he'll be known as Iron Fist and recognized as one of Japan's representative powerhouses. Ryoga realizes that all the future celebrities are gathered in this one place for the raid. The Rookie Tank is starting to sweat, wondering if their party can really clear the gate before all these legends do. Ryoga just turns away, telling him not to worry about them and to just do things their own way. He's already made up his mind. He's the one who's going to clear the shrine and claim that armor. The party charges toward the portal, ignoring the stares from the other hunters. As they cross the threshold, a message confirms they've entered the Forgotten Shrine. Once inside, Ryoga activates a ring on his hand, calling for his summon to appear. The Dragonian Trial Guardian manifests in a surge of dark energy, towering over everyone. The massive creature looms in the shadows of the ruins, its blue scales glowing faintly. The teammates are visibly shaken, asking if Ryoga plans on turning them into undead too. He gives them a cold look, telling them he doesn't just turn anyone into a puppet. The Dragonian Trial Guardian just laughs, mocking them by saying they're so weak that a zombie is the best they could hope for. Ryoga tells them to stop worrying about useless things and keep moving. Suddenly, the stone pillars and floors of the shrine begin to shift and grind together. The Dragonian Trial Guardian notices the terrain moving and checks with his master to see if they're okay. The rookie archer panics, realizing that this shifting landscape means the actual difficulty is 3 stars. The entire internal structure changes once a day, along with all the monsters inside. Ryoga remains stoic, remembering that these characteristics are exactly the same as they were before he regressed. He tells the Dragonian Trial Guardian to take the vanguard as they push forward. The summon is happy to oblige, ready to protect his weak master while buffed by dark thorns. Sunlight streams through the cracked ceiling of the ancient shrine, illuminating the dust in the air. The group stops as the Dragonian Trial Guardian senses something waiting for them ahead. A pair of clawed gray feet step out onto the stone floor, kicking up a small cloud of dust. A fallen cultist emerges from the shadows, its skull-like mask and red eyes glowing with malice. Ryoga keeps his cool, identifying the enemies for his startled team. The cultist lets out a cackle and sprints toward them with terrifying speed. But the Dragonian Trial Guardian is already on top of it, catching the monster mid-charge. The rookie tank finally speaks up to suggest backup, but the battle is already being handled. The Dragonian Trial Guardian seizes a cultist by the face, his massive claws digging into the skull. With a sudden burst of strength, he crushes the enemy's head like it's nothing more than a piece of dry clay. The cultist's body goes limp instantly, the red markings on its mask fading as life escapes. The draconic warrior doesn't stop there, pinning another cultist to the stone floor with overwhelming force. A powerful punch lands with explosive impact, sending debris and shockwaves across the chamber. The rookie tank watches the display of raw power with wide eyes, completely blown away by what he's seeing. Steam vents from the Dragonian Trial Guardian's body as he stands over the wreckage, mocking the weak enemies. Ryoga Chinen steps forward to scold his summon. If the heads are crushed, they can't be raised as useful undead. The brief pause is cut short as a massive second wave of cultists begins swarming into the room. The draconic warrior prepares for the next round, nodding that the enemies just don't know when to quit. Ryoga decides he's seen enough from the sidelines and prepares to take an active role in the fight. He raises his staff of grudges, and a system message confirms his mana consumption has been significantly reduced. Channeling his power through the floor, Ryoga activates bone control to catch the charging enemies. Sharp bone spikes erupt from the ground in an instant, impaling several cultists through their chests. The dark and holy energy infusion eats through the enemy's remaining health at a terrifying rate. Ryoga knows that because of their low attribute resistance, this specific combination of magic is fatal to them. A debuff wave sweeps across the remaining cultists, visibly draining their speed and making them sluggish. The Dragonian Trial Guardian notices the change immediately, as his own stats are doubled by a powerful buff. He charges headfirst into the enemy lines, his movements fluid and practiced from his recent sparring. He smashes into the center of the swarm like a meteor, shattering their formation in a single blow. The summon stands over the heap of corpses, as the last of the cultists are finally dealt with. Ryoga lowers his staff with a sigh, realizing he almost forgot to activate the life drain effect to top off everyone's health. Fafnir reminds Ryoga that without him around, the kid wouldn't even be able to use a skill like life drain. The Dragon Man huffs, waiting for at least a simple thank you or a bit of gratitude. Ryoga looks at him with pure annoyance, missing the days before his regression when Fafnir was actually the quiet type. A level-up notification pops up as Ryoga hits level 20, feeling new knowledge being etched directly into his soul. He unlocks 2 new skills, Dark Wise and Dark Rain, both designed to slash his spirit power consumption by 10 and 20%. Ryoga realizes these are the perfect tools for a marathon battle in a place like the Forgotten Shrine. He commands the fallen enemies to rise and respond to his call. The armored zombies that emerge are high quality, sporting a massive 100% boost to all their stats. Shintani is impressed, wondering if the cultists make for stronger undead because their base stats were higher than orcs. Ryoga corrects him, explaining that while the body is a factor, the spells you engrave into them matter way more. The guy looks back at him, completely lost and confused by the technical talk. Ryoga clarifies that it means the stat difference isn't that huge, then shifts his focus to the path ahead. He tells the group to pick up the pace because this shrine goes a lot deeper than it looks. They head into the massive columned halls of the Gothic shrine. Fafnir takes the lead, tearing through the cultists with savage efficiency. One of Ryoga's undead soldiers clashes shields with an enemy, holding the front line. A brilliant yellow flash cuts across the room as another hunter clears a path. The armored zombies charge forward in a glowing teal swarm, relentless in their pursuit. Despite their progress, Ryoga grits his teeth, annoyed that there's just no end to the enemy waves. Suddenly, a heavy vibration shakes the entire area. Shintani shouts that the structure is changing, and they need to get out fast. Ryoga tells him to wait, searching through his memories of the future to find the right play. He recalls an old television interview with Hunter Asaka, the first person to ever clear the Forgotten Shrine. The host starts off by asking her to explain her strategy for clearing the gate. Asaka explains that while most gates are simple, the Forgotten Shrine requires a special method to even reach the boss. She details how the 3 types of monsters in the shrine each drop a unique kind of proof. To proceed, you have to collect 49 of those proofs and place them on specific pillars throughout the dungeon. Back in the present, Ryoga spots a pillar with an eye pattern and realizes the next monster is about to spawn. The walls continue to shake as stones crumble from the ceiling. A swirling red vortex opens up in the middle of the hall. Something massive and dark begins to push its way through the portal. A giant demon eye emerges, surrounded by a mass of writhing black tentacles. The group stares up at the creature as it looms over them. The central eye pulses with a sinister red light, charging up an attack. A massive beam of energy erupts from the eye, tearing through the air toward the group. Ryoga remains perfectly calm, his eyes glowing teal as he tracks the energy signature. He raises his hand, summoning a set of sharpened bone shards from the air. The shards snap together, forming a jagged wall of bone that catches the beam head-on. The laser slams into the barrier, erupting in a violent clash of red and blue energy. Despite the sheer force of the attack, the bone shield holds firm, barely taking a scratch. Ryoga effortlessly maintains the defense, his power completely neutralizing the threat. He tells his team that a bone shield reinforced by Shintani's formula won't be broken that easily. The demon eye focuses its gaze, preparing to fire another concentrated blast. A high-powered beam of red energy shoots out, aimed directly at Ryoga. Ryoga stays perfectly calm, not even flinching as the lethal light closes in. He watches the energy rip through the air, confident in his defense. Fafnir suddenly leaps in front, taking the full force of the beam against his massive, armored chest. The Dragon Man stands firm, telling his master to stay back while he handles the heavy lifting. The intense heat of the beam pushes against Fafnir, but his scales hold together under the pressure. Ryoga watches from behind, observing the sheer durability of his summon. The ground cracks under Fafnir's feet as he absorbs the last of the energy. He stands tall, completely unfazed, nodding that his body didn't take even a single scratch from the attack. Ryoga explains that he put a lot of work into making that body, so a simple 2-star attack isn't going to melt those scales. Fafnir agrees, realizing he truly has nothing to fear in this fight. He lunges forward at the demon eye, ready to end the encounter. With a massive overhead strike, he smashes the monster straight into the floor. The creature is crushed instantly under Fafnir's overwhelming strength. The Dragon Man asks if he should turn this one into an undead too, but Ryoga says no. Doing that would ruin the loot they need. Ryoga explains that the eye itself is a proof required to clear the gate, and it's useless if it's part of an undead. The group continues deeper, the air growing heavy with dark energy. A strange figure with a smiling white mask watches them from the shadows of the high arches. One of the pillars features a matching, creepy smiling face carved into the stone. A mask mimic suddenly drops down, its spindly black form twitching as it approaches. Shintani is visibly unsettled by the creature's creepy appearance. The mimic unleashes a curse of decay, dark purple mist swirling around the area. Fafnir is caught in the curse, his body beginning to glow with an ominous purple light. A system window confirms that Fafnir's stats are decreasing because of the mimic's ability. The masked mimic lets out a low, predatory growl as it prepares to strike. Ryoga considers using Impure Blessing to counter it, realizing that curses share the same dark attribute as spirit power. A small teal flame flickers on Fafnir's finger as he begins to fight back against the effect. The Dragon Man explains his plan. If the curse is a dark attribute attack, he can just suppress it with a stronger form of dark energy. Ryoga is surprised to see Fafnir has already removed the curse on his own. He stares at his summon, impressed by the incredible talent it took to figure that out instinctively. The mask mimic lunges, spitting out a blast of purple energy called the Curse of Decay. Ryoga Chinan steps up and places a hand on Fafnir's back, deciding it's time to test a new trick. He activates Impure Blessing, using the Dragon Man as a bridge between his own power and the incoming attack. The mimic freezes midair, its empty eyes widening as the curse starts working against it. Fafnir catches on immediately. His master is pumping holy energy straight back through the curse's connection. Caught in a loop of its own making, the creature begins to crack under the surge of light. Ryoga shrugs it off, nodding that being a saint makes his holy attacks a cheat code against dark types. Massive teal energy spikes erupt from the ground, shredding what's left of the mimic. The fight ends in seconds, leaving Ryoga to casually kick the loot away from the remains. He reaches down and snatches up the mask, the third piece of the puzzle he needs. Cronus mocks his choice in souvenirs, but Ryoga knows this ugly thing is the key to the whole shrine. To reach the boss, you need 49 of each proof, a horn, an eye, and one of these mimic masks. He recalls a future interview, where Asaka explained exactly how to unlock the hidden room. The trick is killing the monsters without damaging the quest items they carry. Ryoga finds the requirement tedious, which explains why no one cleared this place for a year. He keeps his poker face, wondering how Asaka figured all this out back in his original timeline. A porter points out that the Phoenix Guild is already making a mess of things nearby. Ryoga just smiles, talk about perfect timing. Deeper in the shadows, Asaka's squad is swamped by monsters with glowing red eyes. Asaka remains focused, drawing her blade with total precision. She meets a monster's leap head-on, her movements sharp and practiced. Her sword flares with a red aura as she slices clean through the enemy's curse. Cronus is impressed, realizing she used raw aura to bypass the dark magic. Ryoga recognizes it as an option of the Gale Sword, a skill that requires insane timing. He isn't planning on hanging around to watch, ordering his own team to pick up the pace. As they march past, Asaka pauses, watching the strange group move with zero hesitation. Her teammate asks if she's curious about them, but she's more confused by their lack of fear. The man dismisses them as reckless amateurs, but Asaka isn't so sure. Ryoga keeps his eyes forward, walking deeper into the Gothic architecture of the shrine. He clears the path with a casual flick of his power, barely slowing down. Asaka watches him go, convinced no one moves that confidently unless they already know the layout. Ryoga stays silent, his mind already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He glances back over his shoulder for a split second, aware he's being watched. Asaka stares after him, getting the distinct feeling their paths are going to cross again. 5 days later, the grind is starting to show, with the ruins littered with the bodies of fallen cultists. Ryoga lets out a sigh, admitting that even with his knowledge, the infinite spawns are getting annoying. His team members are definitely feeling the strain, wondering if the monsters will ever stop coming. A stray cultist tries to sneak up on them while they're distracted. Fafnir isn't having any of it, winding up a massive, scale-covered fist. He slams the creature into the dirt with enough force to shatter the stone floor. The impact sends a shockwave through the area, turning the cultist into a crater. Cronus laughs, calling Ryoga a hero for his courage, though Ryoga's just trying to survive the week. Ryoga Chinen cleans up the remaining monsters, telling his zombies to stay back and provide cover. With the floor cleared of cultists, the area finally settles into a brief, eerie silence. He activates Life Drain, pulling in the residual mana from the fallen enemies to sustain his marathon grind. The system pings with success. He's officially reached level 27. Cronus floats by, telling him to show a little more class with his victory smile. Ryoga just tells the spirit to mind his own business and stop critiquing his laughter. He apologizes for his lack of elegance while sheathing his blade, ready to move on to the next phase. Nearby, a small pile of quest items, an eye and a mask, sits at the base of a cracked pillar. The 48th token is placed, completing the set required to trigger the shrine's hidden mechanic. Ryoga notes that the other major guilds have already headed outside, leaving the gate clear for his final move. He tells his teammates to take the bag of magic stones and sell them while he stays behind. The porter is surprised, but agrees to head back while Ryoga continues the grind for a few more levels. With the team gone, Ryoga and Fafnir stand before the massive, ornate doors of the inner sanctum. Ryoga steps into the darkness, his shoes crunching against the rubble of the shifting floor. Fafnir notices the layout is shifting differently this time, and wonders if they should leave before it gets worse. Ryoga shuts him down immediately, insisting that they're clearing this place right now. The Dragon Man realizes there are hidden conditions to this dungeon that he didn't know about. Ryoga explains they need to place tokens on specific pillars marked with triangles, circles, and smiley faces. He points out that the zombies aren't smart enough for this, so they have to do the heavy lifting themselves. He tells Fafnir to get ready to run, because the timing on this is going to be tight. Suddenly, the entire chamber begins to quake, with massive chunks of the ceiling raining down. One of the armored zombies gets caught in the collapse, its skeletal form crushed under a ton of stone. The system pings with the loss of the summon as Ryoga sprints through the falling debris. He realizes the dungeon's transformation is accelerating way faster than he anticipated. Dust and smoke fill the air as the architecture of the shrine twists and breaks apart. Ryoga scans the chaos through the haze, desperately searching for the final activation point. Fafnir shouts out that he's found it, his voice barely audible over the roar of collapsing stone. He points toward a pillar still standing amidst the ruin. A massive column topples right toward them, threatening to bury them both. Ryoga curses under his breath, clenching his bag of tokens as he prepares to make a break for it. He tosses the bag to Fafnir, shouting for him to make the final placement. The Dragon Man catches the bag mid-sprint, his powerful legs propelling him across the buckling floor. The two of them weave through the falling pillars in a frantic, high-stakes dash. Fafnir slams into the base of the final pillar, just as the ground beneath him starts to crumble. He jams the token into the slot, shouting that he's done it. For a second, everything stays in motion, the dungeon continuing to disintegrate around Ryoga. He grits his teeth, wondering why the hell the seal hasn't activated yet. A massive explosion of energy erupts from the pillars, drowning the chamber in a blinding white light. Ryoga stares up as a final beam of light shoots toward the ceiling, praying it's enough. The blue sigils on the pillar flare with power, locking the dungeon's state in place. Energy beams crisscross the room, weaving together to form a complex glowing seal. The tremors stop instantly, leaving Ryoga breathless and relieved that they barely made it. A massive glowing blue magic circle dominates the hall floor, and Fafnir notes that the path to the underground has finally opened. The debris-strewn stone steps lead down into the dark, silent depths of the hidden sanctuary. Ryoga, Chinen, and Fafnir reach the base of the stairs, followed by their zombie summons as the Dragon Man sighs in relief. Surveying the hidden chamber, Ryoga remains focused, telling his companion that the real battle is only just beginning. Fafnir agrees with a determined grin as Ryoga sets their sights on the final objective, the dungeon boss. The pair stands before the grand, iron-bound doors of the inner sanctum, ready to face whatever lies within. Above the door, a stone tablet bears the chilling name of their opponent, Masked Man, Death Guardian. Entering the boss room, Fafnir senses a thick, ominous pressure in the air that puts him on high alert. Ryoga places his hand on the cold stone of the door, his black ring glinting as he prepares to enter. He pushes the heavy doors open, looking into the darkness with a grim and steady expression. Within the shadows, a grotesque mass of writhing black tentacles and pale, frozen masks begins to uncoil. The masked man, Death Guardian, fully manifests, its central red eye fixed on the intruders with murderous intent. Fafnir remarks on the creature's disturbing appearance, and Ryoga can only nod in grim agreement. The central eye of the Guardian surges with purple energy, gathering power for a sudden, lethal strike. A beam of dark purple mana erupts from the monster's eye, tearing across the floor toward the two adventurers. Fafnir activates his dark aura spiritual power embodiment, his massive form wreathed in shimmering cyan energy. The Dragon Man slams his fist down to intercept the blast, declaring that he won't let the Guardian touch his master. The masked man, Death Guardian, hovers behind a complex purple seal, its central eye bleeding as it continues its relentless assault. Ryoga narrows his eyes as he senses a dark presence closing in. A massive, spectral eye looms behind him, making him wonder if he's just been cursed. Standing before him is the Kaimanjin Death Guardian, a colossal nightmare of masks and tentacles. The porcelain faces on the monster twist into ghastly, mocking grins. Fafnir notices his master's silence and steps up to the front. He calls out to make sure Ryoga is still focused on the fight. The Guardian isn't interested in talking, promising a swift death to the intruders. Its central eye begins to glow with a menacing, purple light. Ryoga remains perfectly calm, staring down the giant entity. He shrugs off the mental pressure with clear mind and prepares a little holy surprise. He hits the undead boss with an unholy blessing, forcing its body to reject its own nature. Ryoga smirks, telling the monster he doesn't want Fafnir to have all the fun. Fafnir realizes his master just weaponized holy energy to cripple their opponent. Ryoga gives the signal for his summon to finally cut loose. The Guardian growls in frustration as the holy power starts to sting. It gathers a massive orb of purple energy between its horns. A devastating beam of light tears right through the chamber. Fafnir doesn't miss a beat, enhancing his legs with a dark aura. He launches himself forward, leaving a trail of shadows in his wake. The lizardman charges straight through the core of the energy blast. He closes the distance in a heartbeat, ready to deliver a heavy hit. The boss screams as it realizes its attack didn't even slow him down. Fafnir continues his relentless assault, a blur of blue scales and claws. He concentrates his mana, turning his fists into iron for extra impact. A single, powerful punch slams directly into the monster's face. The force of the blow sends the Guardian stumbling back. Suddenly, strange purple bubbles begin to erupt on Fafnir's skin. He pauses, his body starting to smoke from the contact with the boss. His eyes widen as he feels his own form beginning to break down. The Guardian's passive skills are literally melting Fafnir's flesh off his bones. Ryoga isn't worried, knowing his hybrid powers have the perfect counter for decay. He casts Impure Blessing again, instantly regenerating Fafnir's damaged body. With his strength fully restored, Fafnir lunges back into the fray. He unleashes his 10 consecutive strikes, a blur of movement that shreds the beast. Every single punch connects with devastating precision. He winds up for one final, explosive hit to end this. A massive hole is blown straight through the center of the Guardian's chest. The monster lets out a final, agonizing shriek that echoes through the room. It clutches its wound, unable to believe its own curses didn't work. It tries to lash out one last time, but its movements are completely pathetic. Fafnir just mocks it, pointing out the giant hole he just put in its knee. He easily sidesteps the slow attack, looking completely bored with the fight. Fafnir narrows his eyes, focusing on the beast's weak points as it recovers from the last strike. He notices the monster is already starting to regenerate its wounds. The lizardman mentions how annoying the regeneration is, asking Ryoga for a new plan. Ryoga just smirks, activating bone control and saying they just need to finish it in one hit. The Guardian screams in rage, its many eyes twitching as it prepares a counterattack. It unleashes its Dark Wave curse, warning Ryoga that hitting the same spot won't save him. Fafnir grunts under the pressure of the incoming curse. Ryoga doesn't flinch, summoning his armored zombies into a defensive formation to shield them. The dark energy slams into the summoned soldiers, shattering them instantly. The undead warriors let out a final howl as they dissipate into purple smoke. Ryoga uses the opening to dash past the chaos, moving with surprising speed for a caster. He reaches out, his hand glowing as he prepares to release the final seal. The Retribution seal is released, surging through the Guardian's body and locking it in place. Ryoga shouts for Fafnir to strike now, while the beast is vulnerable. Fafnir leaps into the air, his powerful muscles coiling for a finishing blow. His fist glows with a massive amount of blue mana. He unleashes a crushing blow, the force of the impact shaking the entire cathedral. The Guardian is pulverized, its physical form finally collapsing into a heap of shadows. Ryoga stands over the remains, watching as a notification confirms he's just hit level 6. He wipes some dust off his shoulder, satisfied with the 2 levels he gained from the boss. Fafnir asks what their main target was, and Ryoga points toward the altar. The cathedral light pours through the windows, illuminating a glowing treasure on the stone. Fafnir is impressed by the aura coming off the red armor sitting on the altar. It's the dragon scale armor, a transcendent rank growth artifact that synchronizes with the user's mana. Ryoga smiles, deciding he'll gladly take this prize for himself. As soon as he touches it, the armor begins to shift and wrap around his hand. He wonders if it really equips just by physical contact. The red scales race up his arm, binding to his body with a surge of purple energy. The stats pop up in front of him, significant boosts to resistance and agility. Ryoga closes his eyes, imagining the armor's perfect form so it can adapt to his style. The process finishes, leaving him encased in a set of sleek, draconic black armor. Fafnir crosses his arms, looking satisfied. He mentions that with the new gear, he doesn't have to hold back during their training sessions anymore. The lizardman explains that he used to worry about hurting his master, but this armor changes everything. Ryoga stares him down, asking if he's actually just excited to have a legal excuse to beat him up. The summon laughs it off nervously, insisting his only goal is to make Ryoga stronger. Ryoga decides it's time to head out, and starts to walk away as a blue glow swirls around him. A skill book clatters to the floor near the boss's remains. Ryoga stops and looks back, noticing the sudden drop. Outside, the massive twin dragon statues stand watch as a portal crackles with energy. A system message confirms the boss is defeated, and the gate will close in 3 minutes. The other hunters outside are in disbelief. Word is spreading fast that the Forgotten Temple was cleared out of nowhere. They speculate if the big guilds like Phoenix or Daybreak were responsible. The rookie tank spots Ryoga walking out of the portal and runs over, relieved to see him alive. He tells Ryoga the news about the clear, only for Ryoga to casually admit that he's the one who did it. The guy freezes. He can't believe the person everyone is looking for is standing right in front of him. He stands there completely bewildered, trying to process the information. He repeats that everyone is currently scouring the area to find the hero of the raid. The rookie's brain finally starts catching up. His eyes go wide as the reality of the situation hits him. He starts to shout out the revelation, but Ryoga isn't having it. Ryoga immediately lunges forward and covers his mouth, telling him to keep it down. The protagonist explains that he hates making a scene and wants his involvement kept a total secret. He offers to add the boss rewards to their final payout as hush money. Ryoga wonders if the guy is even going to ask what the boss actually dropped. The new mask he picked up is a cursed item called the Shadow Mask. He also got a skill book called Thrill of the Hunt, which allows him to track cursed opponents. The rookie refuses the extra money, saying his conscience won't let him take credit for a fight he didn't join. A small smirk forms on Ryoga's face. They've got what they came for, so it's time to head back. Hakuho Naruhito arrives on the scene and asks the gathered hunters if they're the ones who cleared the shrine. Asaka from the Phoenix Guild shows up right behind him, asking the exact same question. The Daybreak leader points out that if Phoenix had done it, they would have gone public immediately. He sighs, wondering who could have possibly cleared it. The woman narrows her eyes, deep in thought. An image of Ryoga flashes in her mind, but she quickly dismisses it as impossible. Back at the city, they arrive at an unassuming workshop. Ryoga and the others walk inside to find the place looking like it was hit by a hurricane. A frantic alchemist comes charging out, shouting and demanding to know what Ryoga has done. Ryoga just looks at him blankly and asks if someone named Aragiri showed up. The alchemist is convinced Ryoga did this on purpose. Ryoga claims he was just trying to help him get a promotion. He is practically in tears, losing his mind over the trouble Ryoga's help has caused. People from all over have been hounding him non-stop to buy potions. His phone is blowing up with messages from customers desperate to make a bulk purchase. The alchemist is on the phone, looking completely stressed out as customers already start demanding the new potions. He's on the verge of a breakdown. Between the patent applications and the mountain of orders, he really thought he was going to die from the workload. Ryoga just watches him pull his hair out, casually asking if the sudden popularity is a nuisance. The guy shouts back that while it's great promotion, the sheer volume is impossible to handle. Ryoga remains cold, stating that results are all that matter. The alchemist just groans in despair. He asks for a status update. The alchemist admits the patent for the mid-grade potion is filed, and they'll be ready for mass production soon. He then hands over a package, mentioning that the special item Ryoga ordered has finally arrived. Inside is the Darkness Orb, a rare artifact that significantly amplifies mana for those with dark-aligned classes. Ryoga tells Fafnir to stand still for a second. The lizardman looks immediately suspicious of his master's intent. Ryoga presses the orb against Fafnir's chest, telling him not to be so wary. The orb begins to glow, with a malevolent green energy in Ryoga's palm. Tendrils of dark mana surge into Fafnir's body, catching the summon completely off guard. Ryoga explains he's using the orb's power to tighten the link between Fafnir's soul and his new Dragonian vessel. A system notification confirms that the Eldritch Dragon completion rate has jumped up, though it's still not quite finished. Fafnir looks at the orb, confused as to why the process didn't just finish everything at once. Ryoga gives him a chilling smile, mentioning one small detail. If that orb ever breaks, Fafnir will die for good. Suddenly, Ryoga lunges forward, and Fafnir's instincts kick in, causing him to react instantly. Ryoga is impressed. The increased synchronization has noticeably boosted the summon's reaction speed. Fafnir, however, is more concerned about the death contract he just signed. The lizardman clutches the orb to his chest, terrified of even the slightest scratch on the fragile thing. The alchemist watches the interaction and calls Ryoga an absolute demon. Ryoga just smiles. Turning back to the rookie hunters, Ryoga asks them to handle the task of gathering magic stones. They're more than happy to help. Ryoga tells them to keep the boss's massive body intact for later. The tank asks if he plans to raise it as another undead, but Ryoga has different plans. He wants to build a golem. The thought of a massive stone guardian looms in the background as Ryoga considers his options. He admits his level isn't quite high enough for top-tier undead yet, so a golem is the next best thing. But for that, he'll need materials and a skilled alchemist. The alchemist behind him gets a sudden chill down his spine. Ryoga just mentions that he already has a top-notch expert in mind. Ryoga smirks. The pieces are falling into place, and now he just needs the right ingredients. They head to the Saitama outlet, a lawless ruins known as Ground Zero where anything goes if you have the cash. They stop in front of a place called Bar Milky Way. Fafnir asks if he's actually sure about this sketchy-looking spot. He's here to see Madame Shuri, a bar owner on the surface but a dangerous underworld broker in reality. Ryoga confirms he has some business with the manager. Fafnir is surprised to learn his master has a taste for vintage bars. As they walk inside, it's clear the place has been completely trashed. The neon bar sign flickers over the debris. Broken furniture is scattered everywhere. Ryoga notes there was a fight very recently and spots a potential lead on the floor. He walks up to a man in a suit who's been beaten half to death and is slumped against the wall. Ryoga looks down at the guy and coldly asks where the manager is. The man tries to act tough, refusing to give up any information. Fafnir looms over him, making the threat very clear. A few well-placed hits later, the man's resolve completely crumbles. Battered and bruised, he spills everything. Madame Shuri escaped 30 minutes ago, and his comrades are already hunting her down. Fafnir worries that a 30-minute head start will make her impossible to find, but Ryoga isn't concerned. He activates his new shadow mask, triggering the soul chase ability. A glowing purple trail of energy appears, showing exactly which way she went. Ryoga simply says, "Let's go." Ryoga's skill is active, pinpointing the exact path of Madame Shuri's soul trace through the city ruins. Madame Shuri is running for her life, her breathing heavy as she tries to put distance between herself and her pursuers. Members of a mysterious organization are hot on her heels, shouting to make sure she doesn't escape into the wreckage. The emblem of the red spider looms in her mind. She can't believe such a powerful group is personally hunting her down. Beads of sweat roll down her face. She knows all too well that getting on the wrong side of the red spider is a death sentence. Her eyes dart around in panic. She realizes just how dire the situation will become if they manage to grab her. The chase leads her into a dead-end alley where several men in suits are already waiting, weapons drawn. She skids to a halt, finding herself completely surrounded by enforcers armed with pipes and knives. One of the thugs moves in close, towering over her as she tries to catch her breath against the cold brick wall. Their leader, a man with scarred arms, smirks with satisfaction, nodding that she certainly made them work for this catch. Madame Shuri glares at him, her face pale but her expression still defiant even in the face of certain capture. She pulls out a hidden dagger, mana flickering weakly around the blade as she warns them not to underestimate what she can do. The leader just laughs at her attempt, sensing that she's already completely drained of mana. Even with her strength failing, she challenges him to step forward and see for himself if she's really bluffing. She stands alone against the group, the weight of the situation finally starting to crush her spirit. She bites her lip in frustration, knowing she has no way out of this trap on her own. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the tension from above, commenting on the large crowd gathered in such a miserable place. Ryoga Chinen looks down at the scene with a cold, mocking smile, asking the thugs if they're putting on an interesting show for him.